Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 14 of Shot of Nostalgia. We are continuing our journey through 1998 WWF, brothers. And we got a loaded one, a fully loaded one. Pun last week would have made better. But we have SummerSlam, the two Raws leading up to it. Oh my goodness, man. A hell of a journey and adventure we are going through. As always, I'm good old Mike Belcaster. And of course, the host with the most.
Live from the No Sales Studios, this is the ACEFIELD Tavern, ACEFIELD Retro, and we are here, man. It's SummerSlam 1998. The highway to hell has led us in this direction. As you mentioned, two Raws and a SummerSlam, and this is the cream de la cream. I mean, we keep saying that, but this is what I feel like it's all been building to, that build up all throughout July, all those memorable ends to Raw, those beginnings, the Vince stuff, Taker and Kane. It's led us to this moment, Madison Square Garden, the mecca of pro wrestling. And we get to enjoy it here on a Friday night on the Turnbuckle Tavern.
Hell yeah, man. Couldn't be a better weekend of shows here, man. I'm super stoked. Absolutely loved going back and watching the shit. It's always so damn good, but nothing is bigger than that SummerSlam, man. I feel like that is the peak event of this year. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I think if we compare it to WrestleMania 14, there's a big gap of episodes that we've taken to get here. But the landscape has changed a lot. I mean, we talked about what's going on in WCW. We spent a lot of time on, of course, we're going to talk about that in the newsletter with what they're doing on that side. But even just within the WWF, there's been a lot of changes that it just happens subtly. But if you really compare the product that we were seeing in March until now in August of 1998, so much has changed.
Yeah, no, it's insane, man. I mean, evolution happened super rapidly during 98. Like, I mean, it's a completely different show than when we first started watching it. Like, you're still washing off those remnants of 97. We're flying right into the 98, 99, almost 2000s like vibe of having badass storylines, great segments, amazing talent. I mean, last week's episode was just absolutely fucking insane, man.
Yeah, if you go back in time and then also put it in perspective, just the difference between WWF 1996 and WWF 1998, it's so huge. The gap is huge for what was different. But if you go 2 years ago, go to 2021 and compare it to 2023 Raw, not much has changed. And I think, I think that speaks a lot about society, that wrestling took a whole, I mean, sometimes change happens progressively, but sometimes in wrestling, change happens dramatically. And I think that's what we saw in the Attitude Era. They recognized what was working. The playbook was all of a sudden just hitting home run after home run. They were like, let's continue to do what they're doing. And the company looks completely different. It took them to the next level.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man.
So if you guys are looking to check back into just don't forget, we have a whole anthology of episodes, ECW, the whole season, 11 episodes talking about ECW 1995, the pivotal year. You can hear us talk about Eddie Guerrero. You can hear us talk about Dean Malenko, Rey Mysterio, Psychosis, of course, Paul Heyman, Sabu, all the things went on there. So you guys can check that out in audio format and also a video on the Turnbuckle Tavern YouTube page. And you can also go back and check out this season. If this is the first time you're popping on here and checking us out, first of all, I appreciate you checking out Turnbuckle Tavern, but you also can go back and playlist and check out all the different shows. Belcaster and I have been here for over a year, week after week, providing you guys nostalgia-based content and having a great time doing it.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. It's been the best journey of podcasting that I think I've been on so far, and I couldn't have a better tag team partner, man.
I appreciate that, man. And then the next season, as you guys know, we're having a short abbreviated season for Smoky Mountain Wrestling 1994. We're going to get into all the weeds that happens to be Smoky Mountain Wrestling and the emergence of different talent. We mentioned New Jack and the Gangsters being over there, but Chris Jericho and Lance Storm, the Thrill Seekers, and Brian Lee's their world champion, Dutch Mantel. And I know people talk about Smoky Mountain Wrestling as this lore of, I don't know, nostalgia may make it be painted in a different light because it's only lasted for a short period of time. And there's a certain sect of fan that remembers it fondly sitting on their TV watching it. I'm curious how our eyes will take it in now that we know what we know about wrestling and doing what we have done for WCW, ECW, and WWF.
Yeah, no, it should be very interesting. It's a very unknown journey on my part too. I only really know of the Thrill Seekers time there, a little bit of Chris Candido and stuff coming up there. But
right.
I'm stoked, man. I'm really pumped. Obviously, it was a breeding ground for so many people. So I'm sure we're going to come across faces we didn't even know were working Smoky Mountain, and we're going to come across a lot of faces like, oh yeah, he did run there. So I'm super excited for it, man.
And I'm not sure if it's in 1994, but I know D'Lo Brown got his start in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, building the ring, and he was recognized there. We saw him potentially in ECW for a bit, helping build the ring in Philly. So we, like you said, we don't know what faces are going to pop up, and I'm excited to experience the journey. It'll be definitely a different feel for that season. So if you guys are into that, and if not, experiment and check it out. Maybe you watch us and check it out on YouTube. It's all available. But we're here right now talking about WWF 1998, and we have 3 episodes to review. Of course, the August 17th Raw, the August 24th Raw, and of course, Highway to Hell, SummerSlam 1998, MSG, Madison Square Garden, the home of WWE, WWF. This is where it all began. WrestleMania 1 and SummerSlam, the first one was at MSG as well. So this is a return to, and we're also, the other thing that really blew my mind was thinking about this ladder match between Triple H and The Rock, and we'll get into that in depth, but it's only 4 years removed from the first ladder match in WWF history on record with Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. 4 years. It's only 4 years. 94, 1998. This blew my mind thinking about it.
It's insane to think about, but I mean, that's probably why it was so good and still holds up so well, because it was still one of those earlier iterations of the ladder match. So super badass. Love it, man. So stoked. Something about Madison Square Garden pay-per-views, especially in these 90s shows, fucking top of the mountain, man. I love the red ring skirts from the gates and the entranceway. Just so beautiful. So beautiful.
So good. It makes me yearn for the times they would run WrestleMania there. And obviously WrestleMania 1, 10, and 20 were there. WrestleMania 30, they broke from the mold and went to the Superdome. WrestleMania 40 is going to be in Philly.
Crazy.
Maybe WrestleMania 50, they'll go back to MSG. I don't know. But let's get into Happy Hour and talk about the newsletter in August of 1998 by our good friend, Uncle Dave Meltzer.
Happy Hour.
All right, Belcaster, let's build that context. We got Dusty Rhodes screaming. We got Mike Belcaster. Happy to hear it. August 17th, 1998, the newsletter dropped on a Monday. And we lead in. It's not WWF. We're leading with WCW. And it was Jay Leno. We talked about it last week. Jay Leno being the latest celebrity in wrestling, getting their fix and hopping in the ring. And we saw the success of Dennis Rodman, Karl Malone. It translated to pay-per-view buys, not much on the TV side. But Jay Leno got in the ring. You talked about it as far as remembering Jay Leno as being a big part of the late night television scene and going head to head with Letterman. And there's a lot of parallels we can draw between the Tonight Show and the late night show with David Letterman with their own wars. But before we get into Jay Leno's, what Meltzer took from this, what do you remember about Jay Leno being involved in WCW?
Listen, man, I enjoyed it. I thought it was hokey. It didn't really belong there, but it was its own thing. It wasn't like Jay Leno's in the world title picture, right? It wasn't anything crazy. It was just a tag match. Nothing too wild. So I was here for it. It was done correctly without embarrassing the product,
Yeah, I agree with that. And then Meltzer got into it. He said Jay Leno wrestled. Well, sort of. Well, he was in a wrestling match and grabbed one hold and threw 2 punches and did a double team clothesline and then scored the pin over Eric Bischoff. And he said to apparently prove that he was really the king of late night TV. Meltzer continues and says he was terrible athletically, but was kept well hidden and he really didn't embarrass himself. And he said actually the main event at World Wild, which saw Hulk Hogan and DDP once again work with non-wrestlers, this time 2 men who hardly qualify as world-class athletes, but it still blew away their match last month. Probably they knew to keep things shorter and simpler, and because Hogan and Page worked a lot better this time out. So we'll see down the line, and doing the newsletters, we'll see how much this translates into pay-per-view buy rates. And of course, Jay Leno, and if you're not familiar with Jay Leno's significance on society at the time, this was a big deal to have him involved in wrestling, even if it looked like shit, even if it wasn't an athlete. This was a big deal because they were talking about it the next night and the lead up to it. I'm sure they were showing pictures of it and getting wrestling infused with pop culture. Got to remember that wasn't commonplace back in the day. They were trying to infuse their way back in.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, that's the thing. You get people talking. I mean, I'm sure the Tonight Show, if we looked up what the ratings were in 1998 of a Monday Tonight Show after all the weekend news, sure there was some high ass rating numbers. I'm thinking like 7 or 8s on the scale. So I mean, it's good publicity all the way around.
So we also have some news here, and this is also interesting to put in perspective as far as age goes. We had a quiet retirement from one of the top stars in the business at the time. Rick Martel was retiring from WCW, and he was citing because of a series of recent injuries to his knee and neck. So he's also, Meltzer talks about him being older, and he's only 42 years old, Rick Martel. He goes through his whole career talking about how he was a top guy and his impact in WWF and then WCW. But he also talked about how Rick Martel left mainstream wrestling for several years before deciding to return due to the current boom period in January 97. He talked about wrestling in Winnipeg on the Indies, some overseas tours with Don Callis, and later formed a team with him in Eastern Canada to tune up for a spot they originally planned to start late last year in WWF. Couldn't reach an agreement with WWF, and he went to WCW before ultimately deciding to retire. He told friends privately that he would be telling J.J. Dillon, who coincidentally was Martel's opponent in his first pro match. This brings us to Rick Martel. I don't think we talk about Rick Martel in the same light as we should. If you go back and look at wrestling, WWF, a very, very popular star, and also in the build-up to get in WWF. Remember, they were collecting talent. You go through the guys like Junkyard Dog, even a guy like Hulk Hogan, they collected from other territories. A guy like Rick Martel in the Winnipeg Canadian scene, he was a big star and also a really great character.
100%, man. I was always a hidden fan of Rick Martel. He's one of my first Legends Mattel figures I picked up. You know, you gotta love the perfume sprayer and like
He had in your face, right?
He had a great gimmick, man, and it was cool. Never talked about highly enough though. Yeah, I mean, people don't mention him in the same light as your Flairs and your Dusties and stuff. But I think he's up there. I think he was a great heel. Really put over that early WWF and everything else he was a part of, man.
Yeah, big piece to Rick Martel is like, I pulled this out thinking how crazy it was. They're mentioning his age is a reason he's retiring at 42 years old. That almost becomes the prime of the wrestlers today, where we're seeing guys reach their 40s, and that's when they really start to get going. So interesting how times change. And I know we always refer back to the 1994 thing with Macho Man Randy Savage, where Vince McMahon relegated him to the announce desk because he was so, too old to be in the ring, according to Vince. He was only in his 40s or late 30s. They're trying to move to a younger generation. And you also go back to when people used to, rip on WCW being the retirement home for wrestling. These guys were like 41 years old.
Yeah.
And that's just commonplace now on both sides.
Listen, I'm 6 years away from that age. It scares the shit out of me. I wish I could retire at 41 fucking years old.
So USA Today ran a front page of the life section story on pro wrestling on August 6th, complete with photos and a capsule profile on both Bill Goldberg and Stone Cold Steve Austin. He said Goldberg was quoted as saying of Austin, "I respect the guy for what he's done, but I don't respect him enough to copy him. Steve Austin is known as one of the best promo guys in the world, but Steve Austin doesn't do one thing that I can do in the ring." And he also continues, Austin continued and had his quote here and said, "Goldberg is squashing people with his power moves, and that's great, but he doesn't know psychology. I'm able to go out there and take fans on a 30-minute roller coaster ride." So the story also touched on WCW's Leno match. They also talked about the other guys involved in the Monday Night Wars. So main reason bringing this up in USA Today, it was a publication that had a lot of steam behind it, and people still relied on print to get their news. So the fact that USA Today was running a story on wrestling and it wasn't like this hit job, this piece to make wrestling look like it's this degenerate, awful form of entertainment that's on par with like the worst drubs of the drubs.
Yeah.
This was a big deal that they were kind of complimentary about the wrestling as an entertainment source.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's weird seeing, two top names from two different companies talking about each other. You know what I mean? Like in one article, that's pretty intense. It's a big deal. I would assume that would be akin to Seth Rollins talking shit about CM Punk, on one of those Instagram reels. So great stuff. But very interesting, man.
Meltzer goes and corrects some of the misnomers that are in this and about the facts that didn't get true and just about the dates that are wrong. But the one piece that I also pulled out of this that I want to mention to you was Goldberg knocking WWF at the time. And he said, on a quote, "It's the worst example you can set for youth. The business has evolved. You can't deny that. But our show is a family show," of course, referring to WCW. WCW had an edge of their own, but they definitely were not on the same page as WWF as far as what they were doing on their side, whether it be Sable showing her boobs or doing the Val Venus stuff. But yeah, Goldberg was not a fan of what they were doing, having a young child and not wanting it to be an example for him. But money does talk. He eventually winds up in WWE when there's no other option.
And it's a little more on the PGer side of things when Goldberg gets there, but it's still edgy, still doing bra and panties matches, still a little on the edge, They didn't completely go to where they are now.
Yeah, 2003, they were still doing the HLA stuff and the stuff with Eric Bischoff, and there was some questionable things going on WWE side in 2003. So it's not like he I mean, again, the check cleared, so I guess he was cool with it.
Yeah.
So speaking of the network and being accused of having this really raunchy product that was a bad influence on kids, we have Bonnie Hammer, who's the senior VP of USA Network, went on record defending the product of WWF, saying it was no more violent than any primetime series. She continued, while there are more violent shows, that statement is an obvious crock when you say WWF or even WCW is no more violent than any primetime shows. This is her quote. Any of the cop shows, look at NYPD Blue. They're far more violent. And then Meltzer continues just about how that he doesn't believe it's true because WWF is really capitalizing on the drama. So, of course, she's going to say that. She's the vice president of the USA Network. She wants them to be looked at in a good light because they're financially tied to them. But interesting people coming out and defending it now.
Yeah, no, it's actually pretty cool to see. I'm all on board for a network head, backing up a product, especially when it's controversial. So it makes for good content, man.
So we also have some news on Jim Hellwig, aka Ultimate Warrior, popping up here, and we're about to see his return in WCW. So this started to get a little bit of steam in the newsletter. Of course, he's not back yet, but Meltzer continues, nothing new on the Jim Hellwig front other than he's scheduled for the 8/17 Nitro in Hartford, Connecticut. Meltzer says why they didn't announce that he was coming, not even hinted on TV that he would be coming, is mind-boggling. He continues, the guy's only going to mean something for ratings for a week or two anyway, so you might as well not give away the value of his debut, which has been the strongest impact of the rating, by not hyping it to death for weeks. A lot of people in the business get so hung up on surprises that they forget surprises are good at times, but at other times, the simple, direct, and predictable approach is basic situations is the best. And the debut of Hellwig is a basic situation. He continues talking about where he would potentially go, what he would potentially do, kind of highlighted they would do the rematch with Hogan, which was pretty much what they did upon entry back into WCW. This is tied into the Nitro stage because we get that version of Warrior. I guess speak to Warrior being in WCW didn't have the same impact. The rematch from WrestleMania 6 at Halloween Havoc definitely is looked upon very poorly, and the mirror build up and all that stuff aside, what were your thoughts on Warrior coming back to WCW, or going to WCW, I should say?
Well, as my 35-year-old self does, he was there for a cup of coffee. It was cool for what it was, but they totally shit the bed out of it. But we're going to revert back to when it was happening, when I was a little guy. Seeing Warrior pop up on WCW was it was earth-shattering. Like you would have thought hell frozen over, right? And never in my lifetime at that time, because I mean, I had the Warrior Hogan WrestleMania poster and stuff like that in my house. Seeing this happen in WCW was fucking huge, man. And I felt that. I loved it. I was marking out, and maybe it was I had fogged glasses on as a kid, but I thought it was still a bigger than life feud. And I didn't see it being so shitty then. Now, yes, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I look back to when 1996 he goes to WWF and how he didn't fit in, and maybe Warrior's character was always meant for the larger than life early 90s, 1990 itself, borderline 80s for his character, and he never transitioned. And I know there was talk during WCW 1996 that he would come into WWF as this like very attitude edge character, and we never quite got that. We got some of it on Nitro for that short period of time, but I don't think there was any buy-in from the fans. And also on his side, we know that he's not going to be called Ultimate Warrior because of the legal battle, and that's mentioned here in the newsletter as well. So yeah, I mean, was it ever going to work out? No, but I think Ted Turner wanted to try because I think he still saw that Warrior was a star, and if you could take them from WWF at the time, that is also part of the war. And sometimes, and we see this a lot today with WWE and AEW, sometimes you sign someone so the other person can't get them. And I think that was the case here.
No, absolutely. And sometimes it works and sometimes it bites you in the ass like it did there.
So we also have the final piece in this newsletter, and says the WWF is getting into new business involving real estate. In a story that was carried nationally, Titan Sports was part of a conglomerate that were the top bidders for the Debbie Reynolds Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. The group is headed by George Simon of Cleveland. And also continued, it's a $9 million bid. Simon formed a Cleveland investment group as a joint venture with Titan Sports. And we continue that the hotel would potentially be called into just a WWF hotel, making it an attraction for fans to go to, stay. At this point, the Debbie Reynolds Hotel has been a big loser for years, and Meltzer continues, as most businesses in that area, as it's close to the convention center but not the Strip. Reynolds lost her fortune in trying to maintain the business, and WWF also placed a high bid in auction for a restaurant, which would be the WWF Cafe type of deal at Times Square. But the people running Times Square turned down the WWF's bid because they didn't feel like WWF fit with the image they were trying to revamp. Couple things to break down there. I listened to the SummerSlam 1998 episode prior to this, where Bruce Pritchard was talking about this, and he talked about the plans of having this WWF hotel, where they had it up and running, not as a WWF hotel, but as a hotel, just to kind of try to make some money back, because they put a lot of money, as we talked about, the top bid being $10.65 million. A lot of money in 1998 being tossed into the year. But the idea of this growth, Vince McMahon and others, people involved with Titan Sports, had a big picture in mind. WWF New York was a big piece to it. That eventually comes to fruition. And also go with this WWF hotel, I'm imagining being a destination of sorts like Disney or something like that, where people can stay and get this all immersive experience. And I think they had this big picture in mind. And just a year ago or 2 years ago, when they were struggling to even put people in seats, I guess they're really feeling themselves at this point.
Yeah, no, this is crazy. I remember specifically the WCW Nitro Cafe opening out there, and me trying to beg my parents as an 11, 12-year-old to take me to Las Vegas so I could go to the Nitro. And they're like, fucking absolutely not. But I remember how big WWF New York was. As a fan, I would have been ecstatic to have a destination wrestling hotel. You know, like you could Tony Atlas working, you know, the baggage handler and stuff. Like it would be, I mean, it's a good way to work it, right? It would be awesome. But big moves, huge moves on WWF and Vince's part.
And also, I mean, ahead of the curve too, because Las Vegas, if you look back to 1998, and now it's easy to see doing business in Vegas looks normal, because we got the Vegas Golden Knights. We're getting other teams. The Raiders play there. We potentially going to have a baseball team there with the Oakland Athletics potentially moving there. And then not to mention running shows there similar to AEW. AEW has a kind of a subsect of home. Maybe it's their third home if you consider Vegas. Chicago and Jacksonville being probably their first and second home. But Vegas is definitely a sweet spot for them as well, where they run Double or Nothing there on an annual basis. But Vegas wasn't that market that people wanted to tap into. And that's interesting to me that WWF saw the dollar signs and going to there and normalizing being there, because there was always this stigma, even going back to being a kid, that no one wanted to go to Vegas because it was this place that, you know, bred this degenerate behavior, where you didn't want a sporting team there. You didn't want this there because no one grew up there. It was a place where people would go to and get in trouble. And I think, again, WWF, WWE, Vince McMahon, they all had this in mind of what Vegas could potentially be for businesses, sport franchises, and maybe the brand of WWF.
Yeah, no, 100%. It falls right in line with what we're seeing now, you know, a little bit cruder, a little bit more hitting the older crowd. So I think it would have fell perfectly in the right hands, much like UFC does out in Vegas. I mean, UFC is a hot spot in Vegas.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, the two go hand in hand, right? So I think it would have been very successful.
Yeah, and the glitz and glam of Vegas definitely tap into what they wanted to be. And we don't really get, I mean, obviously WWE, WWF runs Vegas as a normal spot they make. They don't have that imprint on Vegas like UFC has, as you referenced before. But you know, with the T-Mobile Arena there and the Vegas Knights, I think that was the first move that really got people to look at Vegas and say, it's not such a bad thing. These guys are not going to go out on the Strip and start, you know, whatever, gambling every night. It's just another place to live. I mean, you can get to the same trouble as a sporting franchise in New York and Philly. It's the same stuff. It's just, it looks a little bit different in Vegas, but yeah, the WWF hotel, I like to imagine what it would be. And it seems like a dream come true, especially for a 10-year-old being thinking about, as you mentioned, maybe the talent that would be there, or potentially the activities that can go there, or just staying in a room that had WWF memorabilia at the time.
Yeah, or a bed with ropes, like, you know,
yeah, exactly.
Just hook it up. Like I would be super stoked. But yeah, great concept, man.
So we'll move over to the August 31st, 1998 newsletter, and we're talking about how mainstream wrestling has become. And Meltzer says just how mainstream wrestling has become due to the Monday Night Wars. He compared it to Monday Night Football. So on 8/24, ABC TV debuted their share of Monday Night Football, getting the rights from the NFL, with the Super Bowl rematch, albeit a preseason game between the Packers and the Denver Broncos, which drew a 9.5 rating, basically head-to-head with the game. Monday Nitro did a 5.2 rating, and Monday Night Raw did a 4.7. So the combined rating of pro wrestling, 9.9, although the head-to-head combined was actually 9.72, beat a network Super Bowl rematch. He continues, while the actual viewers watching pro football, because ABC is available in more homes than either TNT or USA, was 9.3 million homes as compared with 7.2 for combined two wrestling shows. The actual reality of this rating comparison is that a network show has the advantage because of the approximately 25% of the homes that don't have cable, having less competition in those homes, blah, 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 continuing the demographics and all that stuff. This is huge. I mean,
huge.
The NFL, they are not quite the monster they are now. So if Raw was to ever beat Monday Night Football, it would be a huge shock. But still, being able to beat a live game, and again, the caveat, it was a preseason game, but it was the first taste of football with a Super Bowl rematch in a preseason game. More people were watching pro wrestling, at least comparable. I mean, on both sides, when you combine both WWF and WCW and splitting the audience, and you can have the conversation like, is it a good idea to have two different shows? And it's sort of the what came first, chicken or the egg? Is it the fact that wrestling is so hot because you have two shows, or would either one of these shows be doing 9 million people on their side by themselves? Who knows? But it's still crazy compared to what they did against football.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to see. It's cool to see the rise of pro wrestling getting to those numbers. I mean, especially the concept of football being on regular network television, and then you got wrestling, both of them on cable, channels. So, I mean, your audience is super slim. I remember having so many friends who had cable and so many friends who didn't have cable. So it was like, you got to pick and choose where you were going certain nights to make sure you were able to watch wrestling there, or make sure you're doing the right shit. So it's insane, man.
Well, that's also the conversation too that we have with these ratings, where people want to talk about SmackDown drubbing Rampage. And I think if they were on equal network, SmackDown would still drub Rampage, but the numbers are not even really comparable because Fox is available on more homes because more people get Fox on the standard cable deals. And you really can't compare the ratings like with the TV ratings in the same way if they're not available on the same platform. It's easy to compare TNT and USA because they're like equal playing ground, available in the same amount of homes. That's why the head-to-head ratings were always so fascinating to look at. But we talked about it. It's a misnomer to say that this is just what it was. Sometimes Raw would beat WCW in the ratings, but maybe the buy rates of the pay-per-views were telling a different story. Same thing with the house show attendance. And I think people need to look at the big picture. And I think we're also trained to look at the ratings because of what the Monday Night War documentaries have showed us. Like, oh, they beat them in the ratings, that must mean they're a hotter product. That's not always the case.
No, absolutely not. It's crazy. It just shows you how far we've came in times. I mean, nobody's picking friends on who's got a Hulu account,
Right.
But I mean, the numbers are there. Wrestling is thriving. It's just the different time slots, the way people consume their entertainment nowadays. It all adds into the factor. You can't really compare AEW to WWE because there's no cross market. There's no cross play. Like WWE is on Mondays and Fridays. Rampage is on late night. SmackDown comes on early. Dynamite's on Wednesdays. Like there's no way to say, oh, there's a war. Like it's just wrestling on different times of the week. Like enjoy it.
Yeah. If AEW was to go head to head with Raw, say USA for Raw and TNT or TBS for Dynamite, then you could compare it. That's apples and apples. But Mondays and Wednesdays are two different time slots, two different audiences. Who knows? You can look at the demographics, but going back to 1998, we have the full breakdown pretty much, and you guys can go check it out in the newsletter. Like I said, August 31st, 1998, with the full demographic breakdown of Raw versus Nitro for the first time in more than 1 year, based on the 824 shows. For the record, this is only a comparison of the two head-to-head hours. So it breaks it down with the amount of people watching, and no surprise, males 18 plus, Nitro had 52.7 to 47.3% advantage. For males 18 to 34, Nitro was leading 52.3 to 47.7%. Nitro was also ahead on the 18 to 49 males. So you go down the list, and there's some discrepancy where Raw has some advantages for kids and Nitro, and he continues and breaks it down for you really good. But he also says the weird message out of all this is that even though Raw is adult-oriented program and then Nitro tries to be clean pro wrestling in this day and age can be, Raw wins with kids and wins strongly with teenagers, but with adults, Nitro wins in all male demos, doing slightly better in comparison as the viewers get older. Meltzer continues, as strange as this is, for female demos, Nitro wins by even bigger margins than with men, although Raw gets closer as women viewers get older. What a strange message this sends when the perverted bad language and more raunchy show actually scores best among old women, teenagers, and young children, losing in every adult age group. So fascinating.
Wow.
And again, this
Yeah.
is just a sample size. It's on a small group of people they're doing it. It's the Nielsen boxes and looking at demographics, but there's got to be something to the trends, right? This is this interesting, and this is this data for the sake of data.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, listen, the times were changing. South Park was huge. I remember those were like two of the things I did when I was a kid. I was in the South Park. I was in the pro wrestling. Like South Park was the least child-friendly show out there, but it was still cartoon and it still got you like excited for it. I think the reason why the male demographic was so involved with WCW though is because they grew up watching the product. So you're seeing your Hogans, your Pipers, your Macho Man, like those are the guys you want to support because you grew up watching them. That's your Hasbro collection, you know. Those
Right.
They're in your blood already. So that's why the male demographic for WCW is so strong. But I also think as the times changed, they seen the value of your Stone Colds, your Rocks, your Triple H's, and it's not just the grittiness of the jokes and the acts that come along with it, but the actual wrestling was miles better. And that's, eventually it kicks in and you're like, shit, well, that's why, WWF wins because they had the better product overall.
Well, it's interesting you say that. And I would like to go back and look at maybe some of the demographic comparison. It's hard to, again, because of the different nights and not having head to head between AEW and Nitro, but it's just fascinating because he was saying the other interesting thing is the demos are almost exactly the same as they were before WWF started going in this direction. So no matter how raunchy it gets, it doesn't cost them any kid viewers. And while it has gained them viewers across the board, at this point, WCW is gaining new viewers in most demo groups except teenagers and old women at the same or greater pace than WWF. A lot to break down there and talk about the numbers and stuff, but it's just interesting to see the trends and the analytics that go into it. We mentioned Tony Khan using analytics to base his programming on and using that to justify maybe running All In London. And maybe he knows something that a lot of people don't know because it's a calculated risk on his end. But these type of numbers are, especially now, 2023, I'm sure we have more accurate numbers and more numbers to pour through than they had here. But it's fascinating to look at just the discrepancy between what they were doing and who was attracting, who you think it would attract. But it speaks to our age group. We watched WWF because it attracted us for some reason, even though it was not meant for our eyes. I don't know. It's it's crazy.
Yeah, I think part of it is also like you're hitting that preteen age. You want to be taken more serious. You want to fall into that, I'm a cool, mature kid category. So your reasoning behind it was like, I could say suck it at school. Yeah. I'm mature. It's great though. Awesome.
So I guess the overall makeup, according to Meltzer and the stats he has here, the Nitro audience is 50% adult males, 26 adult females, 12% kids, and 12% teenagers. And Raw has 47% adult males, 19% adult females, 15% kids, and 90% teenagers. They're pretty equal. Yeah. And we also get the old women as well. WCW is doing a better job of holding on to them and getting them, but we also get an increase for women because after the Hell in a Cell match with Foley, there was an increase for whatever reason in older women checking out the product. And I don't know what you make of that information, but it's there.
It's choppy pee. It drove the numbers up in the elderly female community.
So we also have Jim Ross, and he's the voice of Monday Night Raw, and we very rarely hear him talk critically in this time. And we know how cantankerous he can be now on his podcast, and we also have him discussing Tony Schiavone and Eric Bischoff in not so complimentary ways. And he said, this is Meltzer, Jim Ross heavily ripped into Tony Schiavone and Eric Bischoff and their decision to say Raw was taped and that the title match would only go 10 seconds on his hotline. He noted the show was taped 6 days in advance, not weeks. There was never a title match, nor did they ever promise a match, and then noted the WCW title match only went a few minutes on the same show. He also said Schiavone isn't all that competent as an announcer and has to do what Bischoff tells him, just as he has to do what his boss tells him, and then said how his boss was a great announcer while Schiavone's boss could never be a great announcer. These dudes have buried the hatchet. They're both under the podcast tent of Conrad Thompson, so they do interact, and I think Conrad put it as Tony Schiavone's out of fucks to give, so he doesn't really care about this stuff anymore, and these guys are cool now, but even the war has kind of stemmed into these announcers, and we're going to talk about it next week. WCW is at a huge advantage because Raw is being preempted 2 weeks in a row, and we'll talk about it next week. for US Open. And this is a lead up after the pay-per-view. So if you were watching SummerSlam on Sunday, you had to wait till Saturday to check out Raw because of the goddamn US Open on USA Network. And that crushed them in the ratings. Crushed them.
Yeah, had to. Absolutely.
So we continue here, and anything you put Stone Cold's name on is selling, going off the shelves. And there's been conversation about any sort of item whether it be a Beanie Baby or a pen, you put Austin 316 on, it becomes the best-selling thing. Well, for top-selling sports videos in the country right now in 1998, number 6 bestseller overall is Steve Austin's Stone Cold Said So. And Meltzer continues, WWF has 6 of the 10 best-selling sports videos, which also include DX at number 2, and 3 pay-per-view videos also in the top 10. And he also has 4 of the top 22 overall. But I remember that video, the VHS of Stone Cold Said So, and it didn't matter what it was. It had his name on it. People were buying it.
I fucking loved it. I rented it. I bought it. I still have a copy of it. That was the first time you heard Stone Cold swear uncensored. He's, I'm a bad motherfucker. And you're like, what? Oh my God. Like, you know, the rewind, go back. But yeah, that white VHS case with the smoking skull on it.
Oh yeah.
It brings chills down the spine, man. It was so pumped. One of my favorite wrestling, I guess, documentaries. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember it very vividly. I could see the actual cover in my head, and I'm sure it's available on Peacock right now. If you go through like the VHSs they have available, there's some very obscure things in that library. But
yeah,
we also have a mention of Kurt Angle here in the newsletter. And we're still a year away from Kurt Angle debuting in WWF. And we mentioned him in ECW where he visited and was turned off by the crucifixion stuff and was like, he left and we never got to see him in ECW. But we're seeing him get involved in this Dory Funk training camp. And Meltzer says Kurt Angle had a strong training camp and actually debuted with his first few matches over the weekend. He worked some matches with Dory Funk in his corner as a manager and was put over on all the house shows and got a big babyface reception. So he also wrestled Sean Stasiak, who he beat in Quincy, Massachusetts, and he also beat Christian Cage, who Meltzer describes as a Chris Jericho lookalike, and then he won a Battle Royal. Funk managed Angle, and Jim Cornette managed Cage. After the match, Angle and Funk cleaned house together, and then Giant Silva came out and did some spots. But we're getting the first mention of Kurt Angle, and we're going to talk about him again in the next newsletter and the next episode where they talk about how easy it came to him and how quickly he was there. But at this point in 1999, like I think we are about Kurt Angle's debut was at the tail end of 1999.
Yeah,
he's about to be like the fucking Intercontinental Champion, European, like almost immediately. He's going to win the world title in his first year. So just shows he is a guy who just caught fire immediately.
100%. That's what happens when you visit Planet Stasiak so early in your career, man.
God damn. Sean Stasiak, what a name. What a blast from the past.
Hell yeah.
We also have mention of Andrew Martin, a.k.a. Test. Meltzer says he somewhat resembles Helmsley, and he broke his finger in training camp, went home to Canada to have a pin put in it, but returned to wrestle the weekend shows. We're going to see Test pretty soon as well. He's going to debut with the Corporation in 99 as the heavy, and we're also going to see Big Boss Man come back, and the Corporation is going to kind of take a stranglehold. But Andrew Martin, Test, was a very, very good character that, never reached the potential, but there were some really good moments that he had. Former IC champion.
Yeah, no, I always pictured him winning the title somewhere down the line. He was big. He had the look. He was good on the mic. I even really liked his run in the WWE ECW. So very, very, he worked really well with the ECW crossover, but shame that his career got short, and it's even bigger shame that his life got cut short, man, because he was a talented guy. Yeah,
R.I.P. to Andrew Martin, aka Test, gone way too soon. We continue here in the newsletter. Vince McMahon was talking about Ric Flair and quotes this past week in the Charleston Post-Courier and on AOL. The real statement, Meltzer says, when it comes to this issue is the checkbook as if Flair winds up a free agent. And if McMahon really showed strong interest in him, it's almost a lock that he would. Then whichever side truly wants him the most is the side that will get him, even though those close to situation claim he's 70-30 leaning towards staying in WCW. With the money both groups are generating, if it isn't as one side can't afford him more than the other, both can easily afford him if they want him. So we talk about Ric Flair. He's being sued by Eric Bischoff for not showing up to those house shows, and want to talk about people burying the hatchet and getting in the ring and getting an ability to put shit aside, comparing to the CM Punk stuff. Ric Flair put his shit aside, and we're going to talk about him returning to WCW. He didn't quite make it over to the WWF side in 1998. It will be a few years, before we get that right now, but 2002 we'll get him. He shows up as the GM of Raw, whatever, the part owner of Raw, and then he gets back in the ring. We get some memorable moments from Flair and WWE, WWF, but not quite yet. But McMahon was always complimentary about him.
It's cool. I like to hear it because, listen, diamonds are forever, and so is Ric Flair, baby.
We continue down the line, and this is really in your wheelhouse here. And Meltzer says the WWF toys that have put Jakks Pacific Incorporated on the map in the toy business. Jakks grossed $800,000 during the second quarter of 1998 on WWF toys alone, and the World Wrestling Federation is among the top 5 best-selling action figures of the year.
Oh, you love to see it, man. You
Bone
love
crunchers,
to see
baby. Let's go.
Well, if there's that the Toys That Made Us series on Netflix, and if you watch it, they have a whole episode about wrestling, But what I like to pull from the other episodes is like when action figures were being made, it was action figures first, then what can we build around them? So like the Turtles, they would come out with the turtle figures, and then they'd be like, oh, we're going to build it around this cartoon that we're going to make. And that's how the Turtles cartoon was. Wrestling falls in such a beautiful line with toys because your heroes are here. You want to meet Iron Man and get your box signed by your Hulk Hogan, your Iron Man, man. Like it's the only way you're ever going to have that happen. Your character is the guy you're portraying on TV. You're seeing so awesome. But Jakks Pacific grew up to be one of the biggest toy companies in the world, especially when Jeremy Padawer took over and had the classic superstar line. He introduced them to Pokemon. They were the biggest toy company for decades, man. It's insane.
Yeah, not that I want to get in the weeds, and I mean this for a different conversation. I think we could have this on Fig Night, but
oh yeah.
What was the transition like from Jakks? Did they just let the rights run out? Did they not see the appeal in keeping them, and they let it roll over for Mattel to take over the WWE line?
I think Mattel put in a higher offer as to be the toy company. I mean, the later year that last like 2 years of Jakks was really, really grim. I mean, that's when we got the naked Mark Henry figure. That's when we got a bunch of missing deco. I mean, you got Rock and Roll Express. Their hair colors were wrong. Shit was falling off the wagon, right? And that's I just think it was time for a new move, and that's what happened. And Mattel, obviously the biggest toy company of all time, coming in, securing their deal with the biggest sports entertainment company. Like
right.
It just goes hand in hand.
It's just interesting. And again, we'll do a Fig Night where we bring out all our bone crunchers and talk about it and go through the list. Maybe we'll put some pictures up and similar to like what the Major Pod did for like, the different line. Maybe we'll just pick our favorite bone crunchers and talk about them because I have such a special place in my heart for the BCAs. And man, they are just absolutely, to me, they're probably not the most accurate figures, but to me, they're the most playable with how they bend. And I think about the X-Pac figure. I always reference it, but
love it. Yeah.
His legs are meant to do the X Factor in the Bronco Buster.
Yeah, he's
so
got the big hands. It's the best.
So let's continue here. We were talking about how WWF.com was asking women to flash in the crowd if they were asked, but in the Illinois show at a recent house show, 4 women flashed the crowd, which ended with a local paper doing a big write-up on the story where the executive director of the building said he was going to contact the World Wrestling Federation to make sure something like that never happens again in that building. So I don't know what that means, except WWF is getting women to do that, and it's catching fire where people are doing it and being encouraged. It's a different world.
That shit might not fly in Moline, but when they come up to the Allstate Arena, the Rosemount Horizon, damn it, you see some boobies. It's a good time.
Legend says the wood ceiling makes the boobies look better. That's what I heard.
That's absolutely true. Stone Cold said it himself. I mean, look it up.
So in the final piece here in the newsletter, there's a story on it's just a story in the newspaper again where they're talking about how WWF is negotiating a network deal, but wouldn't say which network they're negotiating with. So potentially leaving USA. We definitely see them leave USA, eventually going over to TNN, but then eventually wind up back on USA after TNN turns to Spike TV for a bit. Ooh. USA and becomes, again, they're a valuable asset. So Vince is being coy. He wants to get the maximum profit out of his business. But the interesting quotes here was talking about just in general, people talking about him. Bischoff had said, I'd like Barry Diller, head of USA Network, to justify how he sells Super Soakers, M&Ms, and video games on a program that has half-naked women saying, fuck you. The response by Vince McMahon is the best. He said, adults eat candy as well.
Listen, if that ain't the biggest Vince McMahon flex ever, you goddamn right.
So, yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell, Vince McMahon just saying, and we talked about the demographics, and if you look at those numbers, everybody had access to them in TV network world, and you could see that mostly children and women and people that were not the audience you're catering to were watching the show, and there's something about that formula that was creating this buzz in wrestling, and we always say, are they ever going to get back to that point? Who knows, but it was a special time in society where things were a lot different. All right, so let's get into getting our fix, and we're going to be talking about WWF Raw from August 17th, 1998 in Des Moines, Iowa, from the Veterans Memorial Auditorium. Let's get our fix.
Get your fix.
Yeah.
All right, time to get our fix and talk about the Raw. As I mentioned, this is from the Veterans Memorial Auditorium in Des Moines, Iowa. Our current champs are as follows. Steve Austin is still our world champion, 6/29, 1998. Our Intercontinental champion is The Rock. He won it back in December of 1997. Our tag team champions are Kane and Mankind, won it back on August 10th, 1998. Our European champion is the King of Europe, D'Lo Brown, 7/20, 1998. And light heavyweight champion is Taka Michinoku, 12/7, 1997, has not defended his title in quite some time. He's not even wearing wrestling tights anymore. He's just wearing jean shorts. So
yeah.
Taka's not thinking about the wrestling anymore. He's full blown heel and tie and tie and trying to cut people's genitalia off.
That's what happens, man. You get you choppy one pee-pee, your morals go right out the window.
Exactly. So before we get to the Raw intro, we do a cold open. We have Austin is being outside Vince McMahon's office. He's trying to break in. He's not going to take no for an answer. Vince is not going to let him in. And Austin is just yelling that Vince better meet him in the ring right now. And then we get the intro right off to a hot start. We get the pyro, we get the intro, we get the video, we get Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler leading us in, but it's not too long until we hear that glass breaking. Stone Cold theme hits. We get him right come to the ring. He comes out with that swagger to the ring. And Austin gets on the mic and says he'll be drinking 23 beers while he's waiting for Vince. So he's taking over the show, holding it hostage. He's not going to let anybody else get in the ring until Vince comes out and gives him what he wants. Gerald Briscoe, Pat Patterson, and Slaughter come on the ramp. And Austin's like, I'm not leaving. I want Vince McMahon. And Vince peers out of the curtain, comes out, and the three, whatever you want to call them, Briscoe, Patterson, Slaughter, we can call them stooges, you can call them henchmen, whatever you want to call them, are following Austin to the ring. The crowd is absolutely losing their mind. And Austin is pretty much thinking that Vince is happy that he and Taker are no longer tag team champions. And he continues saying, I don't trust anybody anyway, and I don't want to wait for a tag to clean up Undertaker's mess over gold. I just want this to be over with. And he says, I'm going to stuff the Undertaker in the back of his hearse tonight. And if Vince gets in my way, I will stick the hearse as well as the other three on the way to Highway to Hell at 110 miles per hour. Man. So this is very, very, again, hot start. The crowd is ready for this. Characters are meaningful. We're getting the build. We're only 2 episodes away from Highway to Hell, SummerSlam, this big match between Stone Cold and Undertaker.
The best. I love these opening segments too with Austin and Vince. Like, Vince still cowarding. Like, he's not fully heel bad guy. Like, he is, but he's not. Like, he's still got some cowardice in him. Like, and seeing him back off, like the peeking through the curtain. I don't want to fuck around with Austin too much. Like, it's gold. Absolute gold.
And this seems like the appropriate time to ask you here, because of course we're on the road to this main event of Undertaker and Stone Cold. But yeah. This is an opinion thing that I'm curious to get your take on. For a match that has 2 faces, do you think it takes a little bit away from the buzz of a match when the fans don't really know who to cheer for? Because at this point, Taker's still a face, Austin's a face. And I think for me, when we get to SummerSlam, we'll of course talk about that in our last portion of Get Your Fix. It takes a little bit away from the buzz because the fans don't know how to react, except they're just happy that both guys are there and they're hot, but it also takes away when no one gets the heat. There's no heat in the match. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's the best way to look at it. You got spots that can pull heat from the crowd, that pull heat, pull heat from the wrestlers. So there's always that. But it's like Kenny Omega versus, Bryan Danielson. You're not booing anybody for no reason. Like, you want to see both guys just put out the best performance, and this was the very earliest version of that, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think a big piece to it is that maybe because eventually they get Taker siding back with Kane, and we'll get there. It just makes me think you should have done it sooner. And having Taker play such a great heel, you never were going to be able to turn Austin heel ever, no matter what he did. Of course, he turned heel in 01. It was probably a bad decision if you look at it. But in 1998, the guy could have done anything and not been a heel. Taker was the right choice to be a heel. The match was still memorable. The match was still good. And we'll talk about the match, obviously, when we get there. But I think it would have been better on the lead up to have Taker just go full-blown heel just for a short period of time.
Yeah, I do not disagree whatsoever. I think it would have been it would have brought more fire to the match. I think it would have been more impactful. But at the same time, wrestling was so hot. Did it fucking matter?
No, I agree,
absolutely not. Yeah,
we're nitpicking at this point, but we at this point in August of 1998 are right in the middle of the Bill Clinton Monica Lewinsky scandal, and Bill Clinton had at this point in time, to bring it back to real life, had admitted in taped grand jury testimony that he in fact had improper physical relationship with Monica Lewinsky, and this is wrestling teaming up. We've seen them use this to do whatever. And of course, this is right in line with what WWF wants to portray. We're having Jerry Lawler as our insight and going to scoop the networks by getting a statement from the White House tonight. So that was the lead in prior to our match. But of course, we're going to get some parody version of it. But this is not the first nor the last time they're going to get involved in things like this.
No, absolutely. Still tongue-in-cheek fun. Like listen, they're just working with what they got.
Our first match here is a triple threat match. Dan Severn, Ken Shamrock, and Owen Hart. This is a build-up. We have a feud that's brewing with the four guys, with Steve Blackman, Dan Severn, Ken Shamrock, and Owen Hart. And of course, Ken Shamrock and Owen have their bigger feud. We saw we're going to see the Lions Den match here at SummerSlam 1998. But we also had the match Fully Loaded, which was, what was it again? It was the
Heart Dungeon.
The Heart Dungeon match that took place in Calgary with the wood paneling.
Gotta love the wood paneling.
This is a match that, again, it goes short. So at this point, we get Dan Severn getting the win here, where Severn won via chokeout. And I mean, I guess to piece this together, we basically had Owen and Shamrock doing a 4-minute match, and Severn scooped up the victory. So we saw the both of them kind of getting to each other. And this was an interesting type of way to book it, because Ken Shamrock and Owen Hart are clearly feuding. They're clearly the superior guys as far as being portrayed here, but we get a lot of stuff happening on the side. So Steve Blackman shows up, as I mentioned before. He takes care of Owen after the bell with a side slam. And once Dan Severn sees Blackman, he releases the hold and puts the beast choker back on Steve Blackman. We get Commissioner Slaughter, Tony Garea, Dave Hebner, all the refs trying to get things settled. They're running out here. There's chaos. And Shamrock and Blackman are out cold. So we get Dan Severn and Owen are high-fiving each other. Looks like they are forming a tandem. Shamrock has helped to his feet, and Blackman is standing again. And Shamrock pretty much is pissed because he's going to go ballistic on somebody. And we are getting Blackman reminding Shamrock that he came down to save his ass, and he starts threatening Commissioner Slaughter. Shamrock starts yelling at Slaughter on the ramp, and would have been cool to see Shamrock going at it with Slaughter a little bit.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this 4-way feud here? Do you think, for me personally, I think it would have been better if it was just Shamrock and Owen, but with the addition of Severn and Blackman, it gets a little muddy because we have Blackman on the side of Shamrock, Severn on the side of Owen. These guys are kind of all cut from the same archetype type of wrestler, where these submission-based guys, but to me, Shamrock and Owen were the main players here. I don't think they needed Blackman and Severn.
I don't think they did. I do agree that it muddied up the water a little bit, but I also think that having the extra talent there leads you into multiple directions. I know we always talk about wrestling needs to have the freeway open for itself. If you need to change lanes, you gotta figure out your opportunities. I think that's what this kind of set up, was that they had an opportunity to change lanes if need be, but the main picture was always Owen and Shamrock, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And the other thing I want to note is Owen Hart's enziguri is probably the best in the history of wrestling. I think and this was way before thigh slapping, the leg slapping, or any slapping at all. This was the back of the boot hitting the back of the head, and the
Beautiful.
enziguri was so good. So we have our next match here, and it is a brawl for all match. We have the Godfather taking on Bart Gunn. I'll let you get into the match, but before, we have Jerry Lawler talking to Bill Clinton over the phone. Bill Clinton is a big fan of The Godfather, and that his ladies would make great interns. Bill Clinton says he loves Raw, and even Hillary knows that. So we get more stuff on the phone, but we lead into the Brawl for All match, which again is unscripted violence, and we have this thing going 3 rounds.
Yeah, you gotta love it, right? Not again, it's still Brawl for All, right? It's not anything too crazy. Godfather got, went for an early takedown, didn't get it. Bart Gunn's just getting showered in points. Like by the second round, it's 20-0. Like it makes no fucking sense, the point system. But yeah, Bart Gunn gets the win by knockout. So it's pretty cool. Still running around. Don't really see the full picture of where they're going with it. I mean, obviously we lived through it, we know. But if you're watching this as it is, like, I'm surprised that they're still sticking with this for the reception it's getting. The crowd doesn't give a shit. This is like, you're at Monday Night Raw. This is your piss break. Like, it's time to go get nachos. Like, nobody wants to see Bart Gunn and the Godfather boxing, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons, and as I was doing the planning for future episodes of doing the newsletter and organizing it, I think Bart Gunn has been beating people up so bad that I think he needs like surgery on his hand, which is why we wait until WrestleMania 15 to get him knocked out by Butterbean in 1999. And that dude is a real life boxer, was 150 pounds more on top of the weight that Bart Gunn has. So there was no way he was going to win that fight. But we'll talk about, maybe we'll get to WWF 1999. And of course, that won't be the highlight. But anyway, we have a backstage segment. Ken Shamrock and Steve Blackman are in the back looking for Owen Hart and Dan Severn. These small segments in the show really add to the layers. And they do this even with the mid-carders where it's expanding the universe. And I think AEW has done very well doing that. Triple H taking over WWE has done a better job of creating this dynamic backstage area. But this is masterfully done in every capacity here. They bounce all around and you don't know what you're watching at first. You're seeing chaos. And that's a very good thing because people are starting to really care about you can't get up. You have to stay in front of your TV. You can't get up.
No, 100%. And like even especially being so close to the match. I mean, throwing Owen Hart out there, like you wrap it all up into a nice ball. It makes things more fluid. It flows like a river, and that's what you want it to be.
So we get Michael Cole giving an update on Owen Hart, and he said that Owen Hart's special trainer for his Lions Den match against Ken Shamrock is Dan Severn, which explains their relationship. Owen and Severn have left the building together, but apparently we're going to get an update from Ken Shamrock later in the show, which leads us into the debut of Gangrel. So Gangrel is, obviously, we know Gangrel very well. We saw him in ECW 1995 with a similar character, the Vampire Warrior. He pretty much has the exact same character here, and this is a squash match. But we got Gangrel debuting on Sunday Night Heat the night before. So again, we mentioned Sunday Night Heat being Scott Taylor, which is the partner of the guy he's wrestling tonight, and Brian Christopher. And now he's making his Raw debut. So Jim Ross was referring to Gangrel as a weird son of a gun. He never mentions that he's a vampire, not once. But we also have Edge being shown during this as well, alluding to their association, sitting up in the audience. And he's intrigued. He's interested in Gangrel. And we're going to see that pretty soon come to fruition with the Brood becoming a thing here in 1998. But again, this is a squash match by all intents. It goes 1 minute and 4 seconds. We get Gangrel hitting the Impaler DDT very fast, making him look good. And Gangrel will be featured in some main story. I don't think Gangrel really gets the credit he deserves as far as character works. He really established that Brood character and that theme music. Everything about the presentation kind of helped Edge and Christian get into their own. And of course, they go miles past where Gangrel took them. But the Gangrel character is kind of cool. It's the one and only vampire in wrestling, and it fits in 1998.
Yeah. No, it wasn't goofy. They didn't overdo it. It was really cool. The blood thing still fucking pops me every time I see it. But yeah, I was always a big fan of Gangrel. Somewhere on one of my old iPhones, I have a picture with Gangrel that I met him backstage at a Smashing Pumpkins show. And he was David Heath, man, fucking sweetheart, awesome guy. But I always was a big fan of the Gangrel character, even up until that moment when I marked out when we were at catering together.
So we also get word from Ken Shamrock and Steve Blackman, and they say 2 hospital beds. We want one for Owen, one for Dan Severn. And they are just beating up the stage behind Michael Cole. And Michael Cole is just like, I'm out of here. I don't want anything to do with this. And after the break, Michael Cole is ready to interview DX, pretty much in the same spot where Ken Shamrock just tore apart. And the Nation interrupted immediately. And they are face to face. So Michael Cole doesn't know what to do at this point. And we are getting chaos in the back, but this leads into another match here. The DOA, the Disciples of Apocalypse, April and Skull with Paul Ellerin. What up, Paul Ellerin? In their corner, taking on Farouk and Too Cold Scorpio. So lead us through this match. And this is a rematch from the July 27th Raw that we covered.
Yeah, I don't know how, like I'm going to keep saying it until they're written off of our fucking television again, but I don't know how DOA is still on Raw, man. I don't know how they're getting this push. They defeat Farouk and Too Cold Scorpio, which just blows my mind. Not a long match, 4 minutes, 30 seconds, but it's crazy that DOA is still doing it. So they do the twin switch. Scorpio gets a cradle, or Scorpio gets cradled for the pinfall, and then it's it, man. It's just heartbreaking. Like, why you gotta do my boys like that?
So we have Bill Clinton on the phone again in the beginning of the match. During the match, they're talking about this, and he says his job is still getting done, and the economy's doing great despite getting it on. And the more he's getting stuff done. So again, alluding to that stuff. But we lead into the War Zone. I love that they transition to this. I love the extra hour where they're doing the War Zone stuff, and we get this street fight 6-man tag match between the Nation and DX. So it's the Nation, obviously comprised of D'Lo Brown, Mark Henry, the Godfather, and The Rock, taking on DX, which is Billy Gunn, the Road Dogg, Triple H, and X-Pac, with China in their corner. And China is not there in the beginning of the match. So the Godfather is still obviously selling the injuries, or not even selling. He's probably actually hurt from Bart Gunn. So it's 4-on-3. And we've got pretty much the basic hardcore style weapons all around ringside. Which at this point, trash cans, cookie sheets, chairs, everything you can ask for, pretty much the Jack specific accessories around ringside. This will become very commonplace in the rest of the Attitude Era, but this is a chaos driven match. I mean, we get Triple H busted open as he's being beat up here. So we're seeing some blood on TV, and a ladder gets put in the ring as the Nation continues to just beat up Triple H very poorly. And Southern Justice and Jarrett continue to beat up on X-Pac when they come out, and we get all the different matches being built up here. Think about all the things that happen for SummerSlam. They're tying stuff together where the match goes 6 minutes and 40 seconds. I would assume the Nation wins here, but I didn't see a pinfall. So
it wasn't clear. No, absolutely.
It was just chaotic. And I think the Nation won by TKO because they were left DX laying.
It was just there to advance the stories, though. I mean, we got so much intertwined, like you were saying. We got X-Pac with Jeff Jarrett. We get the ladder tease in the ring. We Rock being pissed off, taking his title, walking out of there. It's good. It's good storytelling mechanism, man, and I really enjoy it. I love the chaoticness or the chaos that happens when you get these 6-man tag matches. And I mean, like you said, this is Jack specific. Fucking accessory pack 101. Like, we're having a blast here.
And the other thing they're building towards at SummerSlam is X-Pac and Jeff Jarrett is a hair versus hair match. So they do allude to that, where Jarrett cuts off some of X-Pac's hair just to kind of send a message here. And man, we get the Nation looking really strong here. 6 minutes and 40 seconds. Like we said, an inconclusive ending, but we got some blood and we got people left laying. So we move to the next match here. Well, the next segment first before we get to the match. We got Tiger Ali Singh in the ring, and he says, I'm going to pay any American in the crowd $500 to lick his manager Abu's feet since he's been working out all day. So he didn't get a chance to shower. And, this is just a Indian version of the $1 Million Man. It doesn't last long, but not great.
Probably for the better. I do remember these segments, though, and being disgusted that people were licking this dude's feet, and they made it go more grotesque and grotesque as it comes out. Like, it's just nasty to begin with. Even if you're showered, clean, licking a giant dude's feet does not sound like a tea party. I'm fucking good on that.
So we catch Sable stretching before the arm wrestling contest, and we go into the arm wrestling contest between her and Jacqueline. So Sable comes out with the bikini contest trophy that we thought she gave to Luna in the oddities, but she has it this week. Mark Merrow is not there either. And Jim Ross is explaining that the Insane Clown Posse will be at SummerSlam, which, by the way, is cut out of, they're at ringside, but they cut out the entrance and the performance on the network, so we don't get to see that. This is a no contest. We get obviously Mark Merrow, the Oddities, Luna, stuff, psychological mind games, all the stuff with the arm wrestling match. This is sports entertainment, and it's just kind of gaga, but not great. But they're building towards something, I guess, for the women's championship.
Yeah. No, it's weird. I mean, it's cool, but it's weird. You gotta love the arm wrestling gimmick for two very, very talented female athletes. Like, yeah, send them out there in bikinis and have them arm wrestle. It's typical late 90s WWF shenanigans.
Yeah, so they're gonna reinstate the women's championship pretty soon, and it's just gonna be given to a match between Jacqueline and Sable. So this is ultimately what it's coming for, and I think it's going to help to make this mean something. But at the end of the day, this just also shows how far women's wrestling has really come.
100%, man.
So Michael Cole is asking Val Venus why he would want a gauntlet match with Kai and Tai after everything that went down the week before. Val Venus says he's able to go all night long. And if he wins, he gets 5 minutes with Yamaguchi-san to show him firsthand what it's like to be severed at the head. So, yeah. So again, follow up for the choppy pee-pee and figuring out what's going on with Val Venus and trying to move on from that. We're going to see Val Venus get a chance at D'Lo Brown's European Championship at SummerSlam. But yeah, Val Venus trying to move away from Kai and Tai. Maybe the blow off is going to be tonight.
Yeah, like it. I'm digging it, loving it.
We get a quick Draws' World segment leading into a match with Draws in a Brawl for All. Bradshaw taking on Darren Drozdov in a Brawl for All match. You want to lead us through?
Yeah, man. Listen, it's again same bullshit that's the last one. I mean, by the time we're in the second round, Bradshaw's just scooping it. Not 20-0, but he's 10-5. Or Droz is up 10-5. But Bradshaw defeats Droz, and yeah, the Brawl for All finals are next week in Philly, man. Bradshaw versus Bart Gunn.
Yeah.
All the money's on the line, damn it. But it was good when they show a clip of Bart Gunn knocking out Godfather. It's Brawl for All. We're almost over with it. We're going good.
So we also get Michael Cole backstage telling Steve Austin is looking for the Undertaker, and he's going to show us what happens then if he doesn't show up. Before that, we get a couple things in between. We get a check-in with Al Snow. We also get Dustin Runnels, he is coming back, New Testament style thing, and that never really actually happens. And then Sable was coming out demanding Jacqueline for a fight, and then gets broken up by the Oddities. So, which leads us into the gauntlet match, which is Kai and Tai, as we mentioned, taking on Val Venus in a 4-on-1 handicap gauntlet match. So we had Val Venus bringing a pink super soaker to the ring and makes a Bill Clinton sex joke on the mic, obviously very timely. Commissioner Slaughter says only one member of Kai and Tai can come in the ring at one time. And we get Men's Teo starting out first. And it doesn't take much. Val Venus delivers a fisherman suplex for the pinfall. Doesn't take much. Pins him with
Beautiful
that.
fisherman suplex, by the way.
He has a really great fisherman suplex.
Yeah.
Sho Funaki comes in, flies off the top rope. He gets a power slam. 15 seconds, pins him. Jerry Lawler's on commentary talking about Bill Clinton again during this, so we're getting more updates. We get Dick Togo, and Dick Togo gets a big powerbomb from Val for a 2 count. And we also get Venus burying the knees into Togo as he hits a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker, which was great, and then sets up a second powerbomb for the money shot, 2 minutes and 50 seconds. He pins Dick Togo, but then out comes Taka Michinoku, who is the current light heavyweight champion. The final member of Kai and Tai come out here, and things are looking good for Val Venus. Taka ducks a crossbody, causing Val to go to the floor, which I always love that spot, by the way, when he goes for the ropes to the floor.
Beautiful.
And Taka goes to the top for a dive, and Val needs to put Taka away. He boots down Michinoku and follows with a butterfly suplex, gets a really close near fall, which I thought was over for a sec. Taka blocks a charge in the corner, avoids a second charge, which Val Venus looks a little bit stunned. Taka goes for the Michinoku driver. Val blocks it, lands a slam. Flying elbow from Venus misses. As Val gets up, Taka grabs him. Michinoku driver. 3 minutes and 30 seconds for that part of the match, and gets the win. So he doesn't get 5 minutes with Yamaguchi-san, and Kai and Tai stomps him after the match. Mrs. Yamaguchi comes out to the ring with her current husband that is forgiving at this point. She slaps Val Venus, and Kai and Tai celebrates. Val Venus grabs his pink super soaker and sprays everybody out of the ring once he came to. And we get more Bill Clinton jokes. At least we saw Taka wrestle, I guess, right?
Hey, we got two. We almost got two Michinoku drivers, but I was just about to say I could watch Taka just do Michinoku drivers for an hour and be happy. It was great. Loving the Val Venus glow up though. I mean, comes in strong, looking hot. Obviously, Taka puts him down, but he's really fulfilling his character. He's doing a great job. Great in ring work. I forgot how talented Sean Morley was.
Yeah, so we also have the main event here with the Undertaker coming out. No Undertaker after his music hits, and then he appears on the ring steps, raises his arms, and he can slowly turn back. We get the glass breaking, Austin come to the ring, and it's absolute showtime at this point. Taker has his back turned to Austin, and next thing we see, we get fire shooting from the corners. It's not the Undertaker, it's Kane. He grabs Austin, gives him a choke slam, and then Kane takes off his garb and starts beating the hell out of Austin. Austin starts to fight back. We get a Luthez press. They go to the floor, and the crowd is absolutely losing their shit. And they start making their way to the hearse that has been parked by Ring. Kane to the hearse and realizes it's locked, and Undertaker is driving the hearse. So Taker drives away, and it appears Undertaker and Kane are together, and that's where we're left looking at this. So end of Raw was pretty crazy.
Yeah, nice mystery. Nice tie it in. Like, oh shit, what's going on? Are they back in cahoots? Are the brothers there? What happened to Bill Clinton? Tune in next week. Crazy.
Which
though.
leads
Good
us
stuff.
to the
Good
go-home
stuff.
show for SummerSlam 1998. WWF Raw, August 24th, 1998, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the Core State Center. Our current champs were all the same as last week, so not going to go into it with you. And we get another cold open. Taker walking out of his dressing room. Kane's behind him. And now it looks like we can officially a word. Not even 2 seconds into the show, we see they are in cahoots again.
Motherfuckers.
We get the intro of Raw, and Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler lead us in, and we get the most destructive pair of brothers you're ever going to see in your life. The Brothers of Destruction heading out. We get Vince McMahon joining Taker and Kane in the ring. Vince is happy about what he's seeing, and he said, and we look above. The Hell in a Cell is hanging above the ring, and not even Jim Ross knows why. So we're questioning why. And Vince says that finally Taker and Kane have come out of the casket. He considers that the best TV he's seen since President Clinton's mea culpa a few weeks ago. So we get all these Bill Clinton jokes. So we get more promos, and they're talking about working together. And we also get Mankind joining the party, who's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. We get Paul Bearer getting fat shamed, and Bearer, Kane's father, pleads with Kane not to side with Taker. Paul Bearer calls Kane's mom a sleazy whore to make the crowd and JR groan. Kane puts his head down in shame, and when Bearer begs him to destroy Taker, he turns away and lets Taker pummel Paul Bearer. Jim Ross is totally convinced now that these two brothers are working together, and Mankind runs down to help Paul Bearer in this situation, but he's destroyed by both of them. Mankind and Kane, as we know, are the tag champions, but Taker and Kane are delivering a spike tombstone pile driver right on Mankind's head. Mankind is destroyed here. Jim Ross is saying again, Jim Ross is so good on the announce team right here. He said he thinks the brothers must have pre-planned all of this, what's going on, because now they have a wall of fire in front, so Austin can't get out in front of the ramp. And Austin is not happy about what's going on, but this is building up towards a little bit of heat. And again, we have Taker, who's not officially a heel. I think if they would have went a little further, we would have got a little bit more heat on this match. Would have made it even more memorable.
Yeah, could you imagine being in the crowd for this fucking opening, though? I mean, wall of fire, Hell in the Cell's hanging up there. They're the Brothers of Destruction are in cahoots. We got Bill Clinton on the fucking line. We got Mankind getting fucking tombstone all through hell. It's insane, dude. What a hot ass opening.
So we also have to figure out what the hell is the Hell in a Cell doing there, and Austin and Taker, and what is going to happen with that. And of course, we'll get our answers. So Ken Shamrock is taking on Dan Severn in our opening match here. If you want to lead us through what's going on, this is again more build up for Owen Hart and Ken Shamrock.
No, this is the best, man. So we do get Jim Ross talking about Mankind. Mankind's going to the hospital, damn it. He's all fucked up, but I mean we get right into the match. Obviously they're hyping up the Lions Den match. They got a lot going on, but this is fun. Just two big dudes beating the shit out of each other, and Shamrock gets the win. It was fantastic, man. Or by DQ nonetheless, but I mean they're sitting here beating the piss out of each other. I'm here for it. I like the hype going into the fucking SummerSlam match because I mean it's insane. And yeah, it's just a good buildup for it, man.
So Steve Blackman runs down after the match. He bicycle kicks Severn in the face, and then Owen escapes to the floor. Ken Shamrock turns around, and he throws Blackman away with a belly-to-belly suplex. Blackman didn't like that. He gives Shamrock the same as the refs run down to keep them separated. Lots of chaos. Again, these guys are all tied together, and there's a lot of anger between all parties, and we're getting more build up to this Lions Den match with both guys in the corners.
Yeah, I love crazy ass Shamrock too. Every time he snaps, every time he gets crazy. I mean, here he's fucking headbutting stairs and shit. Like he's just a wild man. I love it though. So love it.
So we go backstage. We have Tony Garea and another agent on the floor. Mankind is out of the ambulance and he's wheeling the stretcher around. So after the break, Jim Ross talks about Philadelphia, and Mankind rides down to the ring on the stretcher as he crashes to the side of the ring. This is the stuff that appears in his Titantron, where he's flying down the ring and lands into the side of the. This was amazing seeing this, the cold open off the commercial.
This is this is your beautiful Mick Foley moments. Like I love the energy he brings to it. Like who the hell's going to slide down on a stretcher? Nobody will. It's Mankind. Mankind will slide down on a stretcher. It's beautiful.
So Mankind grabs the mic and it says, "Now it's clear that Kane and Undertaker are working together. Vince McMahon has offered Mick Foley a chance for redemption tonight inside the Hell in a Cell." Mankind says, "I have a plan. I'm going to climb to the top of the cell and throw Kane down or through the cell. And after I do that, I've got a surprise for the big burnt bastard, and it's 7,000 thumbtacks." And it says, if things go my way tonight, history will be made. And if it doesn't, it won't be the first time he's got his ass kicked in Philly. Either way, Mankind says he doesn't give a damn, and he'll see Kane tonight in hell. Good promo by Foley.
Great promo. I could listen to Foley read the back of a fucking cereal box. He's so poetic, so good with his words. And the thought of him teasing climbing the Hell in the Cell again, it's just insane for how close it was to King of the Ring. Like that's fucking bonkers, man.
So we have our next match here. It's Kurgan with the oddities in his corner. That's Giant Silva, Golga, Princess Luna, and Sable taking on Mark Merrow with Jackie in his corner. Another DQ finish here. Not much to note here aside from Sable's in their corner. And again, not great. This is Sable with a Rastafarian hat on. Kurgan is watching her dance. And Merrow gives a little low blow during the match to Kurgan. Gets DQ'd. Kurgan gets the win here. Mark Merrow and Jackie escape through the crowd while Kurgan is holding on to his crotch. And that's the end of the match. Not very memorable.
No, this is like if Spencer's Gifts became a fucking wrestling segment. just got off.
So we have X-Pac guiding the cameraman in the back, and he proceeds to piss in someone's boots. So I think we can assume that is Jeff Jarrett's boots he's peeing in. So as attitude as it gets, you go from the oddities to X-Pac peeing in boots.
I'm here for it. I love it.
Which leads us into our next match. It's a tag team match with the former tag team champions, the New Age Outlaws, the Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, taking on Southern Justice, Dennis Knight and Mark Canterbury. But the other highlight or low light here is a drunken Road Warrior Hawk on the commentary table with the headset on. Jim Ross tells production team to cut his mic. He proceeds to have a conversation with them. And he mentions to Lawler about wrestling all the stuff in the Mid-South Coliseum in 86 and being told to no sell the pile driver. And he did it. This is all Hawk on commentary being drunk. Jim Ross mentions Kane and Mankind will meet the New Age Outlaws over the tag titles at SummerSlam. We get more Hawk talking drunkenly. New Age Outlaws picks up the win after Gunn landing a pile driver, and Road Dogg gets the pin. We get no X-Pac and Southern Justice, and they jump a cameraman and shave his head, and that goes for every cameraman who's in the area. So X-Pac building up some of the hair versus hair stuff, but yeah. This is again the bad taste with Hawk on commentary.
Yeah, no, terrible. Just sad to watch, and they're not making it any easier by making it a storyline. Like they are really digging into it, making it depressing as it can possibly be, especially with him going down the memory lane and shit like that. Like it's it's a little bit of overkill, you know.
Which leads us into Warzone, and we have the Hell in a Cell coming down, and that leads us in. I mean, this is a great way to start your second hour. And it's going to be Mankind versus Kane. Kane has Taker in his corner, and despite the referee's best efforts, Mankind goes right to the top of the cell. Kane climbs right up after him. After the door gets slammed in his face, Mankind finds a chair and tries to toss the chair up on the top of the cell. He can't do it. He gives up and starts climbing. Taker follows after him and sends him crashing down through the Spanish announce table. Oh, man. We got Mankind down. Kane walks over, throws Mankind into the cage wall. And this is, I mean, you would expect that they wouldn't give a full match here. This was 7 minutes and 41 seconds. It winds up being a no contest because of what happens at the end with Stone Cold Steve Austin appearing from under the ring. He starts beating up Kane. Earl Hebner called for the bell. Remember we ripped on Seth Rollins versus The Fiend and getting DQ'd in LSL? Well, there is precedent setting. There was a DQ. I believe in this. They call it a no contest, but this was chaos after. Austin beating the shit out of Kane. Taker has his leg through the cell, but we see Vince raising the cage to protect his investment for SummerSlam. He's like, I want Undertaker to take the WWF title away from Austin, so I need to make sure Taker's okay. We get a stunner to Kane. And Kane and Mankind are wiped out, and Jim Ross doesn't think we've seen the last of Austin tonight since Undertaker's still around. Austin goes over and starts bringing the gurney to the ring as we go to commercials. So after the break, Hell in a Cell is being raised to the top, and Taker and Kane are in the ring, and Taker gets the mic, and he's calling Austin a coward for what he did here. Kane is bleeding from his head, and Taker lets Austin know that he sealed his fate, and he just made things personal. So
wild shit that happened on a Raw. Yeah, I mean, this is insane. This is pay-per-view quality. Big payoffs going on here. But I love the idea of Austin hiding under the ring. Really sets up a good thing. Foley is a crazy bastard, and Kane and Undertaker are just fucking. They're insane. They ain't taking shit from nobody.
So we have China out here for a showdown with The Rock, and this is the last time we'll ever see The Rock with the IC title on Raw. So we got to soak it in, guys. D'Lo Brown, Mark Henry, Owen Hart are coming out to support The Rock. Mark Henry's coming out with the ladder of the ring, sets it up in the corner. The Rock gets in the ring now that he's at his backup, and Rock is giving China what she wants. She's got the People's Champ right here in the flesh, but he's not about to fall for any DX sneak attacks, which is why the Nation is out here. He's talking about his $500 shirt, that China needs to know her role and shut her mouth. And up in the Titantron, we see the DX locker room blockaded with a forklift. So Rock is standing here on the ladder because he wants to show he's bigger than everybody else involved here. He's still talking on the mic. He's the People's Champ, the People's Choice, and the best damn Intercontinental Champion of all time. He turns around to face China. And, man, we're going to the next level with The Rock here. We're attaching the rocket to him. He's continued to dress her down with the microphone. Rock says he's the man to give it to her. When she goes after The Rock, D'Lo and Owen grab her and put her to her knees where The Rock feels she belongs. Rock then tells China to experience the magic of The Rock, and Rock goes in for the kiss, but The Rock would never kiss a piece of trash like you. Rock lets Mark Henry do the deed, and Shawn Michaels returns, scares away the rest of the Nation, and then blasts Henry with a chair. Shawn throws the IC belt at The Rock and hands China the chair. And The Rock and the Nation look embarrassed, and Shawn heads over to the announce table and dances to his theme as we go to commercial break. Crazy end here. Yeah, had me thinking about potentially Shawn Michaels in his prime versus The Rock in his prime match that we never quite got.
Yeah, could you imagine, man? But awesome that I love, they locked DX in the locker room. It looks like this is going downhill. Still utilizing HBK, even though he's, on his little sabbatical. But he still wants to be involved, which is awesome. And this is a perfect way to do it without, putting you in segments and shit like that. It's great.
So we return. DX has been freed from their locker room. They're flipping over trash cans. They're looking for the Nation, which leads us into our next match here. Taka Michinoku, Val Venus in a rematch, in a one-on-one match. Taka has Kyoko and Yamaguchi-san in his corner. Lead us through the match because we got Shawn Michaels on commentary now.
Yes. What's up, kids? No, it's great, but listen. It starts off like a normal match. Taka and Val are going at it, but hey, he goes up for the money shot to try to win the match, and Triple H is out there, and he whacks Val Venus in the back with the chair for the DQ, and just shit gets going crazy. I mean, Helmsley just not taking shit. He knocks over. He hits Taka. You can tell he's pissed. He wants to go after The Rock. He's going for it. SummerSlam's right around the corner. Shit is going down. I love it.
It's so awesome. And we're getting the fact that Shawn Michaels is there, and man, it's good stuff because we get more build up to The Rock and Triple H and it feels like a main event level feud.
Yeah, 100%. And the cool thing is too, is like I said, but in retrospect, I don't remember HBK being so involved after 14. I thought he took more time off. I don't remember seeing him on TV as much. So nice little thing to have, especially going into, your biggest pay-per-view outside of WrestleMania and the Rumble. I mean, it's huge. It's awesome shit.
Which leads us into Gangrel's second match on Raw, third match overall against X-Pac. This is another DQ finish, dude. This is littered with DQs, no contest. It's insane. This match goes 1 minute and 36 seconds, and X-Pac gets the win via DQ. But the reason why we get a DQ is Edge coming to the aid of Gangrel, which seems to signal that we're going to get the Brood starting here. X-Pac, obviously a prized possession of WWF. They don't want to make him look weak, but of course, Gangrel is a guy who just debuted. He's a strong character. Triple H and China show back up after the match. Jeff Jarrett also shows up, and another DQ. But like we said, with Edge showing up and attacking Gangrel, there's a question of to why. Like he's in the Brood, and I think it's like initiation through violence. Like, I don't know. We'll see where this goes. I don't remember Edge attacking Gangrel before I watched this. I always thought they were initially together, but I think it's one of those things, they beat each other up, similar to like Cesaro and Sheamus, where they beat each other up and then they eventually became friends.
Hey, it's okay. Sometimes that's how you make the best friends in life.
So we get Bradshaw and Bart Gunn warming up, and then the Undertaker is wheeling around a casket, and man, he's still around Raw trying to figure out what's going on the build-up to SummerSlam. And we get Bart Gunn and Bradshaw in a Brawl for All match, and this is the finals, right? This is the finals between Bart Gunn and Bradshaw. Yeah,
and it's just crazy because it's so far from WrestleMania. It's just insane. So they're having basically half a year off, which I mean is good so Bart Gunn gets to fix his injury and shit like that, but obviously it didn't matter. First one, winner gets $75,000 and the loser gets $25K. I'd take a punch from Bart Gunn to get $25K. It's probably,
I think so.
Probably not as tough nowadays, but shit, I'm sure he could still throw a good one. But yeah, big fight feel. You're rocking and rolling. Bart Gunn gets the win by knockout. Fucking takes Bradshaw. I mean, Bradshaw probably for the best. I wouldn't have went Bradshaw going against Butterbean. I'll take Bart Gunn all day long. So Bradshaw's boxing days put in the past, but JBL's still down the horizon, so everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, not a bad night, man. He gets knocked out, but gets $25,000 for it, $75,000. And this, at this point, unfortunately, this is pretty much Bart Gunn's career. And Bradshaw, as we know, his career is just taking off. We're going to get APA. First we'll get the Acolytes. We'll get the Ministry. Then we'll get the Acolyte Protection Agency. And then we'll get his main event push. Where he'll be the champion 2005 going into WrestleMania 21. So not too far away. Who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought from boxing to becoming a wrestling god? Super awesome.
So Michael Cole's backstage. He's with Vince, and Michael Cole wants to know what Vince's thoughts are about with Taker. Is he a friend? Is he a foe? What's going on with that? And Vince says everybody will get their answer tonight. So he acknowledges the fact that this is the first time in about 2 years we've seen Cole without some carnage or something going on after the interview. So he's commending him there. And we get some very awesome. We talk about Taker's theme being with the guitar riff and just how it just sounds amazing. It's like a guitar electric version of his theme. Yeah. There's some chanting going on in this theme now. This is like the Ministry version of the theme song.
It's building. You feel it, like you know where it's going, but it's so badass. It's obviously one of the most iconic entrances of wrestling in general. But this is a whole different iteration of it. It fucking sells it, man.
So there's some druids right now, and I mean, obviously the lights go out. 8 druids are out with a casket, and after leaving the casket at ringside, they head back in single file, and out come the Undertaker. You have to also think about as well, this is in Philadelphia in 1998. Got to wonder if any of the local talent in those druid outfits or any of the familiar ECW faces that we were so familiar with, because we know local talent is used for this all the time. Yeah. From our local promotions, but Philadelphia, that's ECW.
I'd be here to find out who was underneath the robes.
Maybe we'll see it in one of the newsletters coming up. It'd be like, oh, they use whoever.
Sabu and Taz.
Yes, exactly.
No, fuck you! I'm a fucking druid. It works, man. It works.
So good. So we get Taker coming out. He turns the lights back on, grabs the mic, cuts a promo talking about how he's going to become WWF champion. Unlike Austin, I'll do it like a man. And he tells Austin not to worry about Kane because Kane has his own agenda. I'm not with Kane. It'll just be one-on-one for the WWF title. And tonight, Austin made it personal, makes it clear he's not with Kane, but Kane's his brother. That's his family. So even though they're not on the same page, it's still someone he doesn't want to see get hurt. And we get some other stuff tonight. Austin making it personal. Mr. McMahon comes out. He grabs the mic away from Taker. He asks him again if he's Mr. McMahon's friend or foe. Taker stares directly at Vince and puts out his hand for a handshake. As Vince goes for the real thing, Taker choke slams him, and Vince got his answer. So again, this is the opportunity they had to make Taker a full-blown heel going into SummerSlam on the go-home show. They decided to go the opposite way. Fans are cheering Taker now for attacking the most hated heel in the business of Vince McMahon. Kane comes out of the casket as well. And we also get Austin coming out of a casket. Kane jumps Austin from behind, and Taker stands back watching. Austin's getting whipped all around outside the ring. And then Kane exits to the floor and grabs a chair. Austin continues his way up the ramp, and then the fire starts shooting up the ramp again in front of him with the pyro. And I have to say, despite the fact that if you look through the matches, we have how many DQs? We get the DQ for the Gangrel and X-Pac match. We get the DQ in the Val Venus and the Taka match. We get the no contest for Kane and Mankind in the Cell.
Yeah.
We get the DQ in the Kurgan and the Mark Merrow match. We also get the DQ in the Ken Shamrock and the Severn match. This still was a very memorable Raw because of all the things that happened between that. And it just tells you it's not about the work rate. It's not about the matches.
No, 100%. I mean, who needs a finish at this point? We're just advancing until SummerSlam. And I think that kind of works for a go-home show because you're just leaving everything up there. Like, we don't know what the fuck's going to happen. Everybody's been disqualified. Hopefully we get some answers on Sunday. And by God, we're going to get some damn answers.
Which leads us into why we're all here. August 30th, 1998 from Madison Square Garden, New York, New York, with an attendance of 21,588 with our announcers Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler. We have SummerSlam 1998, Highway to Hell. And this is the first pay-per-view since going monthly in 1995 to start at 8 p.m. Previously, shows started at 7, and they continue to start to 8 p.m. to this day, despite it, being not the norm. And pre-1995 era start times, the shows varied from 4, 5, and 7 p.m. Eastern. And this is also the first pay-per-view after the debut of the new show, Sunday Night Heat, which we talked about was 7 to 8 p.m., which probably made the fact that they started an hour later.
Yeah.
And we all know about Sunday Night Heat, and eventually would end in 2006, and it would air live on pay-per-view nights. It would be like the pre-show, the whatever you would call it for Ring of Honor or AEW. This gets people to buy. They would hype up buying the pay-per-view. Sunday Night Heat had 3 matches prior to this.
It's crazy. It's super cool, though. I loved it. Absolutely loved Heat. I think Heat brought that element of like urgency to order the pay-per-view, but you also got a taste to warm up the crowd. You got a feel for the venue. And Sunday Night Heat's the night of a show. You got to see the cool ass entrance early. Like, you just got you giddy, man. I loved it.
So quickly on Sunday Night Heat, we had Too Much defeating Legion of Doom in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Gangrel defeated Dustin Runnels in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And our last match before the main card, the Disciples of Apocalypse defeated Justin Bradshaw and Vader 2 minutes and 54 seconds. And we lead right into the pay-per-view, which starts right with the action. So This is D'Lo Brown and Val Venus for the WWF European Championship. And as we were talking about on the last few episodes, D'Lo's European Championship reign was pretty much, and the only time the belt was treated as important. And I think you can go back to even when British Bulldog had the title and Shawn Michaels. This is the first time that, because I think D'Lo added a side of comedy to this as well.
Yeah.
To the situation. I mean, now he's claiming that he's represented by all of Europe, and each match he had, the ring announcer would claim he's from a different city. And before this show, he's from Lisbon, Portugal. Tonight he hailed from Helsinki, Finland. But this was awesome. I mean, this match from the start was a very, very good match. And my only complaint, it went too long. And I know one of the things is we talked about in the Attitude Era is that the matches didn't go long enough, but this just goes probably 5 minutes too long. But before that, man, this was just two young guys going out there and gunning. And this was, I wouldn't say ruined by a bad ending, but they didn't have the confidence to have either guy win or lose. Because they didn't want Val Venus to lose and they didn't want D'Lo Brown to lose. So they just went with the DQ finish, which D'Lo won after 15 minutes and 23 seconds. And it was so shitty how it ended. It wasn't like a normal DQ. He pushes the ref and the ref calls for the bell. And it's like, Val Venus gets DQ'd for that after everything that happens in the Attitude Era. That's what the ref calls the bell for.
For sure. But listen, it was still like you could just see D'Lo. He brought comedy to that title, but he also brought confidence. You could see it in his face. I love when he's like, by the way, formerly from Chicago, Illinois, now from Helsinki, Finland, D'Lo Brown. You gotta fucking love the heart into it, man. I thought it was a great match. It was definitely too long. I was gonna say 5 minutes off of it with a solid ending and not such a sloppy ending. Pretty good, but I did love Val Venus getting putting on the chest protector, going for the money shot. The ref accidentally knocks him off. Like it was good shit. Really fun back and forth there. But yeah, the ending, they should have pulled the trigger on somebody, and it should have been D'Lo. I don't think it would have hurt Val Venus to lose that one.
No, not at all. And after the match, we got Jimmy Corderas, who had the shitty ending, gets the money shot. The fans get what they want here. Like I said, the match probably went a little too long, but it was a really good match with two young, talented guys that were promising for the mid card of WWF.
Yeah, absolutely.
We get Michael Cole in the back with the hearse. Where earlier in the night on Heat, Steve Austin assumed contained Taker or Kane, so he decided to beat the hearse with a sledgehammer. The tow truck guy is getting ready to haul away the hearse, and Mankind is seen observing the hearse with a sledgehammer in hand. Mankind was going to put Kane inside it, but so much for that. Mankind continues to watch the tow truck guy work as we head to the ring. And we lead into this handicap match, was sort of just here. This was the Oddities taking on Kai and Tai. And we're starting to move the Oddities and Kai and Tai into jobber section of this. And I think they're filling their role. And we saw the Oddities debut on Raw in June. And obviously former Truth Commission leader Jackal decided to unleash them on the world. And we get them brought. We got Golga, Giant Silva, Luna Vachon, and obviously the Stern guys. But other fun fact about this match is this is John Tentis' first appearance at a WWF pay-per-view since he beat Adam Bomb in less than a minute at WrestleMania 10.
That's wild.
So we get the ICP performance cut from our WWE network.
Yeah.
So they performed, didn't get to see it. I remember watching this live on pay-per-view and saw them performing, but this was not on. They're just at ringside. And this is a 4-on-3 handicap match. The Oddities wound up getting the win. I'll leave you there. Not much to really talk about. I mean, a little longer than it should have gone. It probably is the worst match on the card by a lot. But at no point did they were not trying to present this as a serious contest. They were still through and through. This was a comedy match, and they made sure to make it clear to you guys that it was a comedy match. So I guess you give them that credit.
Yeah, a step up for the Oddities and a step down for Kai and Tai. That's basically what sums it up. And it was just weird. It didn't have any oomph, no momentum behind it. I was bored as shit with it. And I expected more because I did enjoy the Oddities when I was a kid. But I mean, you take ICP out of the Oddities, what do you got? You just got a bunch of goofballs sitting in there looking goofy. So I think that's a flaw for the Peacock Network, man, because that Oddities performance was nice. It was good.
So our next match here is a hair versus hair match. X-Pac taking on Jeff Jarrett. X-Pac has Howard Finkel in his corner. Jeff Jarrett has Southern Justice in his corner. And story has it that Jeff Jarrett was going through some personal issues at the time. His wife was battling breast cancer, and this is why he volunteered to do this finish of the match where he would get his head shaved. So good guy here. Yeah.
Every time I want to hate the motherfucker, he does something nice like this. And like you hear backstories, you're like, God, that goddamn Jeff Jarrett being a nice person, man.
He wound up not getting that bad of a haircut either. They do a nice crew cut, not to give you guys the finish, but yeah, so
there's the finish now.
he definitely, by cutting his hair, it definitely fixed his look. And this was the look he became kind of known for in WCW with the crew cut and the don't piss me off stuff. So for those who watched Heat prior to this, Howard Finkel got assaulted by Jeff Jarrett in Southern Justice and had his head shaved, which explains why he's at ringside. So again, Sunday Night Heat is important to the canon of WWF. And we get this match here, and it's pretty damn good. It's a pretty good match where it goes 11 and 10 minutes, and we get a pretty good match eventually where, like I mentioned, Jeff Jarrett didn't get his head shaved. He gets a crew cut, which is not a bad haircut.
Yeah.
And X-Pac gets the win here with the X Factor, and then also hits him with the guitar, obviously, which was great to see. The fans pop for it.
100%.
Jeff Jarrett was yelling at Mike Chioda about getting blasted with the guitar, and Finkel is on side. So it was a nice feel-good ending here. And these guys become pretty good rivals throughout the Attitude Era, X-Pac and Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, and this was a very, very good outing. Both guys fucking, going out there stealing the show like they do. But my biggest pop from this whole thing was hearing Howard Finkel go, or X-Pac goes, "We got 2 words for you," and Howard Finkel, "So good." So
good.
Great stuff, though. Awesome. And yeah, like you said, it birthed the iconic look for "Don't Piss Me Off," Jeff Jarrett, which I think I remember a little bit more fondly than this version. So I'm here for it.
Lots of shenanigans as well in the match, too, with the New Age Outlaws coming out with the chairs after, and Southern Justice. And
yeah,
it was what you would expect from the Attitude Era. And it was a fun match. So we also see Method Man from Wu-Tang Clan in the building. He's from New York. So Jim Ross saying Wu-Tang Clan and Insane Clown Posse is just all time. It's the best.
Wu-Tang's for the children, damn it. I love it. I'm here for it.
Him listening to Wu-Tang is something I like to just imagine.
Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with. I love it.
So we also have Doc Hendricks. He's at the MSG Theater observing the Lions Den. And we also get a clip of Michael Cole talking with The Rock about injuring Triple H's knee on Heat. Rock wonders how Triple H can climb the ladder to retrieve the IC title on one leg. And he says, "I'm the People's Champ. I'm the best damn Intercontinental Champion there ever was if you smell what The Rock is cooking." So 2 of the 3 things stick. The People's Champ, the smell what you're cooking. The best damn Intercontinental Champ thing doesn't last long because he loses the title here.
Yeah.
But decent promo as we build into this match. Again, another fodder match here. We get Sable with a mystery partner taking on Jacqueline and Mark Marrow. And give you guys context, after Mark Marrow defeated Sable out Over the Edge, he decided he needed a new valet. So a week later, he debuted Jacqueline, as we talked about, his new love interest, and thought to be gone forever. Sable returned later at the side of Vince, as we talked about it, who decided ratings were better with her on the show. Fun fact of this match as well, Adam Copeland, as we talked about, he was all over Ontario as well as the Great Lakes region of the U.S. under the name Sexton Hardcastle. He would go on, obviously, to be successful tag team Sexton Violence with Joe Legend. During 97, Sexton Violence became part of a larger stable known as Thug Life, made up of Legend Hardcastle, childhood friend Christian Cage, Bloody, Bill Scullion, and Rhino Richards. In his indie career, Copeland won the SSW tag title and the ICW Street Fight title twice with Cage, in addition to his reign as ICW NMWCW Midwest Unified Tag title holder alongside Joe. The duo of Copeland and Rizzo was known as the Hard Impact before changing their names to the Suicide Blondes. That would be known as Edge and Christian, always tied together. In 96, they worked in Japan under the name Canadian Rockers. Copeland once wrestled under the name Damian Stryker. And also he claims that he wrestled for WCW only once and solely for the money. And it was the worst gimmick to date. According to Copeland, he and Terry Richards were the only people to remember that he wrestled for WCW at all. And he was signed to WWF in 1998, where we saw him made his debut against Jose Estrada, breaking his neck. And that leads us into him being Sable's mystery partner. The crowd goes mild. They don't even react to this. This is the pay-per-view debut for Edge, and it's pretty amazing. All these years later, he's still here.
Yeah.
And Sable gives Edge a look, which I really don't think will mean anything after tonight. We see Sable and Edge getting the win, 8 minutes and 25 seconds. Can you think of one wrestler that lands on top of the list of people that should have been a mystery partner for Sable? It wouldn't be Edge. It was such a weird pick.
It very was, especially with the oddities and all this stuff. And like, you expected something, right? It could have won a different million ways, but Edge and Sable, they're both blonde. They're both young. They're both hot. It works for whatever reason. But it was an okay match. Nothing fancy.
So he makes his pay-per-view debut among so many pay-per-views at MSG. So we'll see Edge down the line, but this was his debut. So a little trivia question next time you're at a bar for wrestling trivia. What pay-per-view did Edge make his debut on, and what match was it? It was teaming with Sable. So there you go.
Crazy. Oh yeah.
We get Vince McMahon in the back interrupting Mankind's interview with Michael Cole and talks about defending the tag titles by himself because he says Kane's not showing up.
Yeah, such a good promo though. I like Vince. Like, come on, I'm just gonna get my ass kicked. And like, no, it's okay, Mick. You got this. It's so good.
Which leads us to the Lions Den match here. This is taking place at MSG Theater, and this is the culmination of the feud that began in May when Owen Hart broke Ken Shamrock's ankle. And this is supposed to be an MMA type of atmosphere, touching on Ken Shamrock's UFC ties. The cage is much smaller than what we usually see there, so that was kind of jarring. But they also have that platform they can climb on. They also talk about how Dan Severn is the guy who trained Owen to be able to handle himself in this environment. And again, the tie is Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock, all these UFC rivals. Yeah. And by the way, this match is not in MSG. It's in the theater next to the arena. And they start off with all these submissions that go back and forth. Ken Shamrock ultimately gets the win from the ankle lock. Pretty good story. I mean, inside the cages, I thought it was pretty well done for an experimentation of a different type of match.
Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't get to see more of the Lions Den throughout WWE history, right? It's crazy, but I thought this was cool. Very awesome aesthetic. Love it being in the theater and not like on the side of the stage. You know what I mean? Like it had its own unique vibe to it. Crowd was into it. I was into it. The ring sounded brutal when they were hitting each other up against the cage walls. The slams sounded great. Just an awesome aesthetic, man. Somebody needs to make a Lions Den playset. That'd be cool. That would have been beautiful.
We get Steve Austin in the back, and he says he won't give Vince or Taker the satisfaction of seeing me lose the WWF title, which leads us into the tag title match. As we mentioned before, Mankind has to defend him by himself. So
yeah,
we have a lot of things happening with the top tier guys starting to switch allegiances in the weeks leading up to this. As we talked about, the Undertaker Kane alliance was being teased, much to Mankind's chagrin. Kane and Mankind ended up brawling in the Raw leading up to the show, as we discussed earlier, and rumors were swirling if he would show up. Jim Ross makes it clear Kane's not in the building. With Kane's alliance with Taker, it made clear on last week's Raw, nobody expected him to show. And the Outlaws bring a dumpster out to ringside, and we get an absolute monster of a match with as best as you can with a handicap match. Mankind gets some offense in, but the end sees a spike pile driver on the belt, and that's enough for the win. 5 minutes and 16 seconds. The New Age Outlaws are new tag team champions. Road Dogg gets on the mic, announces the Outlaws are the new tag champs of the world. And Billy Gunn yells at Mankind to never bet against us at all. And he throws him in the dumpster. And next thing we know, Kane is inside the dumpster with Mankind. He finds a sledgehammer in the dumpster and smashes Mankind. And the Outlaws clear out. Kane closes the lid and wheels the dumpster of what's left of Mankind back to the locker room.
It was ruthless, man. That dumpster thud sounds so great. I'm sure it sounded beautiful in person, but Foley took a blunt headshots throughout this. It was like, even though they're the cookie sheets, you still like cringe and wince when you see it because it's intense, man. But awesome match, awesome angle. Love Foley, love Outlaws, love Kane. It was great, man.
Yeah, it was it was appropriate to be in Philly with this type of atmosphere with Foley. This just happened into that, and stuff that we saw with his head bouncing off the dumpster and the floor and the cookie sheets. Brutal.
Yeah, brutal, but great. Fun watch, man.
And which leads us into the WWF Intercontinental Championship match in a ladder match, Triple H versus The Rock, in one of my favorite matches of all time. They give this match a lot of time, and I'll let you get into it. But the weeks leading up to this very, very interesting character development for both of these guys and both the groups at large with the Nation and DX. And we obviously know DX is lighting the wrestling world on fire, and the moment where we launched this feud into the stratosphere and ended up some personality and extra heat to the Nation with the parody of the Nation with Jason Sensation that took it to the next level. And Owen Hart was seen as more of a killer when he attacked Jason Sensation, which kind of added to his feud going forward and helped him.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot with the Godfather he's no longer calm. He's the Godfather. And then within weeks, we're going to get Mark Henry turning into Sexual Chocolate. Everybody is coming into the Outlaws, X-Pac. This has been good for everybody involved. So we have the DX band leading out Triple H. I'll let you lead the way through. This was such a good match.
You got the "Are you ready?" Oh, it's so cool. I love the live band performances too. Like, this was a really cool, unique thing. They had the band was in the ring. It was great. Triple H gets out there. He fucking starts slamming shit up, throwing the instruments all over the place. Rock makes his way down there. We got China rocking this beautiful green attire, which I'm surprised we never got an action figure of. It's bullshit. But Mark Henry's out there with the Rock. Just great back and forth. I mean, Triple H Rock chemistry. I mean, if you want some of the best, this is it, man. This is a beautiful beautiful ladder match. Good, like I said, back and forth, but loved the spot where Triple H jumps off the ladder. The Rock catches him for the rock bottom. Looks gorgeous. Triple H gets some shit sprayed in his face. I mean, these guys are going all at it. It's beautiful, but as the Rock's climbing up, he gets the low blow from China, and Triple H makes it, grabs the thing. And my favorite thing about this ending for this ladder match is the Rock is right there on the ladder with him. He's not outside. He's not laying on the floor somewhere, looking up at the lights. He's trying to fight for that belt, man. He gets about halfway up the ladder, but Triple H is just that much better and pulls it down. And we get the crowning of Triple H as the Intercontinental Champion. And we are a 30-minute match, man. Fucking beautiful. Great storytelling throughout. Just awesome, man.
And unfortunately for everybody, Triple H gets hurt during this match, and he'll miss significant time following this. I believe it's a torn meniscus in his knee.
That's crazy.
And he wins the title here. We're going to see them have to vacate the title. I think he's rolling around in that wheelchair for a bit. He's still on TV, similar to what they did with Austin with the broken neck. They leave him on TV because they know he's so hot.
Yeah.
The one critique that people have for this match is that it's slower than most ladder matches, but I would say it works in its favor. I think it really expands on what they were going for here. These guys are just they're not going to be the same as the ladder matches we're used to. But if you go back and watch the psychology of the match with the outside interference, and as they build towards this feud of getting to know each other as opponents, this is you want to talk about Vince and Austin, but Rock and Triple H are essential into drawing into all-time feuds. Like, we'll see 100%. Them have this exact same match for the WWF Championship not far after this.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And like, these guys just are like bread and butter, man. They're so smooth together, and you feel it, and you feel how special it is as they're wrestling. Like, you get the magic out of it. And that's on this show, this was a great thing to see.
Which leads us into our main event here, Steve Austin versus Undertaker for the world title. And just before we get into this, Undertaker earned this title shot on July 6th on the Raw we covered, where he defeated Kane and Mankind in a three-way dance. Undertaker no-showed that match, as we talked about. Mankind refused to face his tag partner, so he sat on the ring steps, and Kane beat him up. We found out it was Kane dressed as Taker, that memorable moment. And the big match was set, and we get the Texas Rattlesnake beginning to become very nervous around and not trusting Taker. And rumors on Raw was saying that Takers were considering a return to the dark side and joining his brother and ex-manager. McMahon got involved. And as we mentioned before, the same night Taker earned his shot, something else was big was happening on WCW Monday Nitro on the other side. Bill Goldberg defeated Hollywood Hulk Hogan on the same night. So what a night in wrestling. It would be one of the last times WCW would win a Monday Night Battle. But of course, they should have saved this match, as I'm talking about Hogan and Goldberg, for a bigger pay-per-view. It was about TV ratings, and that's all it was. But this match is all about atmosphere. Austin and Taker, from the beginning, it has an atmosphere to it. They're trading shots in the corner to start. Taker delivers a hard clothesline and tries for the pin. And we do get one of these moments, and we do know now that Austin gets knocked out in the middle of this match, which kind of detracts from it, where he gets hit right in the head going into Taker, which he says he doesn't remember what happened. So Taker kind of has to walk him through the rest of this match. And we also have Taker's a little bit beat up too. We got to remember he's recovering from a broken foot or a fractured ankle, whatever it was. But this is awesome, man. They were brawling through the crowd, ringside violence. We get all the classics here. We eventually get the Spanish announce table where he leg drops Austin through the table. The crowd goes nuts.
Beautiful.
Taker doesn't do stuff like that for all matches. He breaks it out for big matches. What we eventually saw in his WrestleMania run for those like 5-6 years where he had the best matches on the card. He was doing things like that, but it was awesome to see him doing it here. We get a whole bunch of great near falls, and Earl Hebner was very close to DQ and Taker after he dropped him on his crotch on the ropes. Undertaker buys himself some time with the Russian leg sweep, tries for the old school. Austin low blows him on the way down, hits the stunner for the win. 20 minutes and 53 seconds. Taker's not happy, but he does hand Austin the belt. And there wasn't really we talked about all the endings to Raws and different matches and the rest of the card. What they did was they didn't overbook this. They had all the other pay-per-view main events in 1998 had so much going on with all the distractions and interferences. This was strictly Taker versus Austin. And even in the storyline, Taker made sure if he was going to win, it was going to be his win. which ultimately speaks to the character of Undertaker, that he wanted to win the match on his own terms. He and Austin and Taker stare down, and Austin celebrates with the WWF title to close out the show. So if you want to talk about as far as errors and making the Attitude Era feel important, WrestleMania 14 is essentially getting it started. But I feel like this was the show that made them feel like, all right, this is the peak of the Attitude Era as far as presentation goes.
Yeah. And
this is the culmination of everything they accomplished here. I mean, WCW is still being competitive, but an event like this really jars you with seeing what they're putting on the other side with Jay Leno. And then you're getting this on the other side with Taker and Austin just absolutely stealing the show. You can't have one without the other. I think having Austin and Taker in the show was the best two guys to main event.
100%. And like, I mean, as you said, peak Attitude Era. I mean, this is what the whole year has been building up to. And we still got half a year to go. Like it's insane. But I mean, SummerSlam 98 is probably one of the best SummerSlams of all time. It's still, after rewatching it, still look very fondly on it. Loved everything about it. Just an awesome pay-per-view roundabout. And Mick Foley, the Outlaws, it was great. I mean, The Rock, Triple H, great. The beautiful main event, just awesome.
Let's get through the chaser and pick our favorite part of these two episodes of Raw and SummerSlam 1998.
The chaser.
Woo!
All right, so every week we'll pick our favorite part. Let's start with you, Belcaster. Favorite match and why?
Oh, my goodness. I'm going to have to say the ladder match, Triple H and The Rock. I mean, Austin and Taker were fantastic, but that ladder match is iconic. The purple metallic tights from Triple H rocking, the yellow hair, it's burned in the memory. You know, it's the best, but so well done. So good. Lots of hooks. Just really absolutely enjoyed that match so much.
I agree with you, man. I usually want to disagree, but it's one of my favorite matches of all time, with two of my favorites to watch in the Attitude Era and beyond, and to see where the story went leading all the way to Judgment Day 2000 with their Iron Man match and all the other matches in between. These two guys are tied forever, and wrestling's better for it. So this was a great show. I absolutely enjoyed everything about it. I feel like it really culminated as far as the Attitude Era goes. It represents everything I love so much about this era, and there was some finishes here that leave a little bit to be desired. There's a little bit of the gaga and the squash matches in between. But I think for the most part, if you want to get someone to watch a show that's quintessential Attitude Era, this is the card.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself, brother.
Let's close the tab and get ready for next week and tell everybody else what's going on the tab.
Closing the tab.
All right, as the lights are coming on the bar, I'll give you guys the final wrap up. Next week's show, believe it or not, is episode 15 of season 3, airing on May 12th, 2023. We're going to be covering the September 5th Raw, which is a Saturday, the September 12th Raw, which is also a Saturday, and the September 14th Raw, which is back on Monday. So they're going to be preempted twice for the US Open, and we're going to be covering that and seeing them get drubbed a little bit as far as content goes because they're taped, but we'll see how it fares watching all these years later.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Fucking pumped. Let's fucking go.
Make sure you guys go to the turnbuckletavern.com, support us in everything we do. We'll be returning next week. You guys can find all the shows of the history on the playlist, on audio, anywhere you can find it. Watch the rest of the shows, buy the shirts, buy the merch, leave a review on Apple, call the tavern, all that stuff. We love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. This is one of our favorite episodes we've done. So I can't wait to be back next week with you. Episode 15 of season 3 next week. Find us in the same place, same time, turnbuckletavern.com, anywhere you can get it. So Mike Belcaster, lead us out.
God damn it, kid. If you are not excited about 1998 WWF, then kid, get your shit together. Bill Clinton's on the phone. We got to go. He's talking about Monica Lewinsky, cigars, blue dresses. I don't know, but we're out of here, folks.